missing anything. So we watch a couple episodes of the show that we're watching on YouTube, which is kind of funny. I mean, it's a kind of a funny, cute little show. The guy's name's Gus. The girl's name's Mickey. They're dating. He met her at like the convenience store. And there's just stupid things that happen. All right. I'm not missing the Phillies. So after about 4 episodes, you know, when Netflix kicks in and it's like, are you still actually watching this show? Yeah, we're still watching. Well, at that point I said, you know what? Let me just check the Phillies game, right? I want to make sure I didn't miss the Phillies game or anything. They were losing 7-0. So I checked the Phillies game, and it's 7-2, to which 7-4. And then the next thing you know, it's 7-7, right? And I'm like, all right. So I'm kind of dialed in on the Phillies game now because you know what's going on at the same time. The Braves are losing. So we got all this happening, and so now I'm kind of like watching the game on my phone. I'm trying to make nice and watch this cute little TV show on Netflix. And at the same time, I'm now trying to watch the Phillies game. So I got them all going at the same time. And sure enough, the Phillies come back. JT Realmuto gets the single. They score. It's tied. They take the lead. And 12-8 is when I check back in. And I turn the TV on. 12-8's the score. And you know who's up to bat. Bryce Harper. And what does Bryce Harper do? Bryce Harper hits a ball 432 feet out of Citizens Bank Park last night. It's the second deck at Citizens Bank Park. Now, after the game, Harper says, look, I don't want to hear about MVP. I don't want to talk about my numbers. I don't want to talk about any of this stuff. But here I am here to talk about him for Bryce Harper. Now, if any over at 97.3ESPN.com. We're going all the way back to March now. And it's 10 predictions I had on the Phillies season. And my number one prediction for the Phillies 2021 season was that Bryce Harper would have the best season of his Phillies career. Now, mind you, he's only been here. This is his 3rd season, right? And last year they only played 60 games. So I wasn't exactly going out on such a limb. But that being said, last year, if you remember, in spring training, he got off to an amazing start in spring training last year, and they only played the 60 games, the whole COVID situation, so it was really tough to see. But as much as this team drives us bonkers and bananas some nights, to the point that it's driven me to watch a Netflix show, Bryce Harper is becoming worth almost every single penny of his 13-year, $300+ million contract. Now, if you go back to my 10 predictions, this is what I said. 1, it was my first prediction. Bryce Harper will have his best season with the Phillies. The right fielder is entering his 3rd season, hitting .262 with 48 homers, 147 RBI, and 215 games in red pinstripes. His debut season with the Phillies saw him smack 35 homers, 2nd best of his career. But don't be surprised if this is the season Harper sends 40 or more balls over the fence. Well, he hit his 33rd last night. And let me tell you, if in fact the Phillies are to make the playoffs, he's at 33. He's going to need to get to 40. 7 more homers in about 17 more games. Now, let's all dial it back to 2007, all right? Let's get in the old DeLorean time machine and go back to 2007 for a moment, shall we? 17 games the Phillies had left behind the Mets. They were 7 out, 17 to play. I think we all know what happened there. If you don't remember because you're a Met fan and you're just not smart, I'll remind you. You blew the division. The Phillies came back and won. Well, right now, there's 17 games, I believe, left in the season. The Phillies are 3 back. So obviously, the percentage chance, as I'm sitting in a sports book, if they would tell you whatever the percentage chance to win in 2007, it would be far significantly lower than the percentage chance they would have to win currently as we sit here in the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City that has a beer wall that you can walk up and pour one for yourself, and you can get me one too while you're at it on a Happy Hour Friday. Thank you very much. Now, Bryce Harper conversation. I was listening to Greeny on the way in today, and they were talking about how Shohei Ohtani has pretty much locked up the MVP award. I am never a fan of giving the MVP award to a player who's on a team that is not going to not only not make the playoffs, but not close to making the playoffs. So while Ohtani might be having the best season, his best season isn't valuable enough for the team to sniff the playoffs. They are completely out of it. Now, part of it is Mike Trout, who has also won multiple MVPs on a losing team, the same Angels team, has been hurt the entire season. In fact, his manager, Joe Maddon, pretty much said yesterday that Trout will not play the rest of the season. That we already kind of knew. But the question becomes, if the Phillies don't make the playoffs, is Bryce Harper really worthy enough to win the MVP award? And this is pretty much what it will come down to for Bryce Harper is, did the Phillies get close enough to the playoffs? Because I think at this point, as long as they are where they are, they're only 3 games out right now. They've got New York this weekend for 3. They've got Baltimore and they've got Pittsburgh coming up. Now, there's 9 guys sitting in this room right now, a couple ladies, that we could assemble that might give Baltimore and Pittsburgh a pretty good game. Now, that being said, the Orioles have just beaten the Yankees 2 out of 3, I believe. And we've seen this story for the Phillies unfold way too many times. Terrible team on the schedule. Oh, all we have to do is beat the Marlins, and it doesn't happen. But Bryce Harper can erase that. Bryce Harper can finally be the one that pulls them over the top, pulls them past a lowly Baltimore team, gets them past a terrible Pittsburgh team, and possibly past the Braves and into the playoffs. And if that's the case, Bryce Harper will win the MVP award. No questions asked, period, point blank. If, in fact, the Phillies make the playoffs, it will be because Bryce Harper took them there. That is one thing. My prediction in March is that he would have his best season ever. And my prediction right now, which isn't so outside the box, is if, in fact, they make the playoffs, Bryce Harper will be your National League MVP, period, point blank, end of conversation. All the people out there who think I don't know what I'm talking about and text me and tweet me and do this and say you're an idiot and blah, 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 you can all agree with me on this one. Bryce Harper will win the MVP if the Phillies make the playoffs, right? This is one that we can all kumbaya on, the trolls, everybody that is like, that guy on the radio doesn't know what he's talking about. Today, we all can come together and agree on something for once, can we not? That Bryce Harper is deserving. As much as we're negative Nancy's in this town, we always, Bryce Harper doesn't do this. He's not worth the money. They're not winning enough games. They don't do that. If they make it to the playoffs, it's because Bryce Harper is he's not the sole reason why the team won the game last night. They had they had a total team effort. They scored 17 runs. They hit 1 home run in the game last night. But Bryce Harper in the game last night scored 3 runs. He had 4 RBI. He was on base 5 out of 6 times. He has 7 home runs in his last 11 games. It's easy for us sometimes to minimize when guys are actually performing at the level that they're paid to perform at. It gets lost in the sauce of what he's doing because the team has let us down night after night in big-time situations. Can you imagine where this team would be if someone could close a freaking game out? They have 30-plus blown saves. I've actually lost count. I think it's around 32, 33, 34. Can you imagine if they could actually close a game out? Where they would be? And part of that, in part, is because Bryce Harper has essentially carried them there. So we start there, 609-403-0973. That's the text board, 609-403-0973. You can download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play and message us through the phone, through the show, on the go. Take the phone, take the show on the go, wherever you may be, and you can message us right through your app. And, of course, if you are watching the show live on YouTube and on Twitter today, as many of you already are, in the live stream. All right. Get on board. Check us out here at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. Now, I have been to this room one time before for a live show. Now, this place, as we have said, it's funny because when we walked in from the parking garage, You can literally see the size of the television from about 300 yards away. That is how big the television that greets you in this place is. It is a fascinating place, and a Friday happy hour. There probably could be multiple decisions you could make. I would say the number one decision right now would be, what am I going to do on Friday? I'm going to come to FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's and make sure that I watch all the games here this weekend. And I will tell you this. Yesterday, we had Jeff Nadeau on with us. He gave us a couple of the picks for the weekend, and we will reiterate some of those. I will give you some of my favorite plays as well as college football tomorrow, NFL football as well. So that is what we start with the Phillies today. I feel like Bryce Harper being possibly the MVP. Like, if you were to sign Bryce Harper for 13 years, you might say to yourself, I expect him in that 13-year span to win an MVP. Here's the problem. If he wins the damn MVP and gives you an MVP season, it can't be as a non-playoff team. You cannot waste his 29, I believe he's 29 years old. You cannot waste his age 29-year-old season watching other teams participate in the postseason. That is the frustrating thing about all this. That is what really in the end you might look back on and say, man, we had Bryce Harper on our team. Remember those years we had Bryce Harper? And at the end of the day, you might say for the first three of them, we didn't make the playoffs once, and he gave us an MVP-type season. How disappointing would that be? You win, you had the guy on your team that had you in a playoff race. He gave you an MVP-type season, and because you couldn't close out a couple of games, because the previous regime built the bullpen so poorly, and that you've had to go now, they've had to go to bullpen games. I will say this, twice in the last two times they've gone to the bullpen game, they got down in the game and came back and won. So the bullpen game hasn't necessarily hurt them on that night. The question is, will the bullpen game hurt them on the next night? What does that even mean? Well, because I had to pitch a bullpen game, I had to use 8 guys yesterday. How many guys pitched in that game yesterday that maybe they're not available or maybe they're not their best in the game tonight? Now, Zach Wheeler's on the mound tonight. You're hoping that he goes deep in the game up against the Mets, his former team, that you don't need to go to the bullpen. But there's so much into this game this weekend. I think this series is interesting because keep in mind, the Atlanta Braves have now lost 2 straight. They just got beat by a lesser opponent, right? The Braves themselves, you're like, all right, the Braves are playing. Who did the Braves just lose to last night? Now I'll get the schedule up for you here in just a second. But the Braves lost a game against the Rockies, right? They just lost 2 out of 3 to the Rockies. And now they've got to go to San Francisco and play the Giants. So all of a sudden, the Phillies were like 5 back. Oh, man, you're losing to the Rockies. You lost to the Diamondbacks. But somehow, some way, and I'll tell you the answer to the question, somehow, some way, Bryce Harper, that's the somehow, and that's the some way. They've kind of kept you within reach. And then I look at the schedule, and you've got New York, the Mets, who are a disaster. They've got the San Francisco Giants out in San Francisco. You know, the Braves are on a 3, 7, 8, 9, 10-game West Coast trip right now. They have a 10-game West Coast trip to play before they face Philadelphia. They're playing San Francisco, 4 against Arizona, 3 at the Padres. San Francisco and San Diego are firmly in races. San Francisco is trying to hold off the Dodgers for first place in the West. San Diego is trying to get that second wild card spot right now. So those 2 teams have everything to play for. So the Braves have 10 games, 2 of which are against teams that have something to play for. Philadelphia, on the other hand, this is set up for them to take this over. They're going to play the Mets, who are a disaster. They're going to play the Orioles, who might be the biggest disaster in all of baseball. They're going to play the Pirates, who absolutely stink, before they play Atlanta. It's right there in front of them. The opportunity is there in front of them. Sports Bash is live, 97.3 ESPN, here today on a happy hour Friday, FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. All right, this is my personal invitation. I will be here till 6. If you would like to come out and buy me a beer, I will accept it. How's that? All right? On a happy hour Friday, I will. Normally, if somebody says, hey, can I get you a drink? I will say I have to wait until the end. Today, I will not wait till the end during the show, and then we will see how I sound around 5:45 tonight. Not bad, right? Good. That's a good trade-off. Indeed helps you hire great people fast. Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest. Visit Indeed.com/credit. That's Indeed.com/credit. All right, we are busy today. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City joins me at 2:40 today. Last night, he was tweeting away, not too happy at that Giants game. I'm going to get to that Giant game last night. I'm going to get to the Eagles and the 49ers. I'm going to get into week number 2 of the NFL. All that coming up here on the Sports Bash. Plus, Sal Paolantonio joins me at 3 for another edition of Sal Pal Friday. So stick around for that here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app, thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle.
30 seconds.
Crushing loss for the Giants last night. They essentially gave the game away. In how many different ways? Well, they had a holding call on a touchdown run. They dropped a touchdown pass late in the game, Darius Slayton right in his hands. They had an offsides call on the game-winning kick that went wide right, and they had got a chance to kick it over from 5 yards closer. The guy who's literally lined up over the ball on the center snap was the guy who actually went offsides. You can't make these things up. And they lose last night as time expired, 30-29 to the Washington football team. It is another way. You know, I didn't realize this, but all this morning I was looking through my Twitter feed as I woke up today, and I saw all of these little just things that kept popping up. And to my response, I would say, this warms my heart. The Giant fan is probably the fan base that I love seeing miserable more than anything, right? If you're a Giant fan out there listening, I love watching you be miserable more than anything else in the world. You deserve it more than anything. That is a high praise for me, that the Giant fan deserves more misery than anyone. They've had more fraudulent Super Bowl wins than any other franchise out there. They have them. I'm not taking them away, but they are the more fraudulent wins than any other franchise I can put together. So any misery a Giant fan has to go through, I am all for it. It warms my heart to see what ends up happening. Like this, the Giants are now in sole possession of the most losses in the NFL since the season. It warms my heart to hear that. Giant fan, go pound sand. The Giants are 0-2 to start the season for the 8th time in the last 9 seasons. That warms my heart on a happy hour Friday. I feel like I just took a shot of whiskey. Giant fan are now 18-48 since 2017. You are the worst in the NFL. That warms my heart. Giant fan has won 27% of their games since 2017. And that warms my heart. All of these things feel like happy hour Friday, taking a drink, enjoying myself early in the day. That all warms my heart, Giant fan. And your performance last night warmed my heart even more, because you couldn't come up with a more inept way to figure out how to lose that game. You lost a game to Tyler Heinicke, a guy that was the backup quarterback for the Seattle Battlehawks of the XFL. You know how many snaps he took in the XFL before their season folded because of COVID-19? Exactly 0. He wasn't good enough to get on the field for the Seattle Battlehawks of the XFL. Yet, he was good enough to lead a drive right down the field against your defense. And that warms my heart. The Giants last night had multiple opportunities to put that game away and just could not figure out a way to do it. Joe Judge, look, everybody wants to hire the next hot Belichick disciple. Exactly none of them have worked so far. So the Giants tried to go uberly outside the box, right? Everybody goes after the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator for Bill Belichick, and none of them seem to work. So what do? Let's go after the special teams guru, Joe Judge. Let's bring him in here. And that hasn't worked either. And that warms my heart. Giant fan, your ineptitude makes this happy hour Friday the best happy hour Friday we can come to on a Friday. Of all the happy hour Fridays, the way you lost that game last night warms my heart more than anything. Saquon Barkley, let's try to grind the game out with a guy who we weren't even sure was going to play in the game. They just try to hand the ball off to Barkley, essentially because he's the running back. We got to hand him the ball because we got to run out the clock. The fact that the offensive coordinator, for years, I got to mock the Cowboy fan because their coach was the worst in football. So what did the Giants do? They said, we'll take that guy, a guy that most of the teams in the Atlantic County Junior Football League, which I'm now learning doesn't even really exist in its same form anymore. Neither here nor there. They wouldn't hire Jason Garrett to call plays for them. Yet the Giants last night had him spitting on the sideline, trying to figure out what play to call next. And, of course, Jason Garrett, just like his days in Dallas, couldn't get out of his own way, and that warms my heart. Giant fans, you did everything you possibly could last night to make me smile. You made it an entertaining game. And in the end, the fan base that's the biggest frauds of all time, the Giant fan, you made me smile more than anything. You lost a game against a horrible franchise in the Washington football team who still hasn't figured out what even to name themselves. Last week at FedEx Field, a pipe burst in the stadium and manure fell all over their fans. And the Giants went there and had a chance to win that game and still couldn't figure out how to do it. The Giants have a mix of the Giant fan fraud and the bigger fraud of fans, Dallas, and took the Dallas coach and put him on your staff. We have an ultimate combination here of Giant fan and Cowboys coach intermingled together to blow a game against Washington. It was an NFC East bonanza last night. Couldn't have gone any better. So the Giants are now 0-2 for the 8th time in 9 years. They are now in sole possession of the most losses in the NFL since the start of the 2017 season. Their 18 wins since 2017. It's the worst in the entire league. Now, that doesn't mean they're out of it. I said that yesterday. 0-2 in this division keeps you alive. But to lose the game in that fashion is just warm in my heart. Thank you so much on the early Thursday night football to give me that type of game last night. Now, Tyler Heineke, by the way, was somewhat impressive. Got to give the kid some credit. He came in that game, won his first, I believe they said his first or second ever NFL start. He started the playoff game for them and played really well. Fitzpatrick gets hurt last week, so he didn't start that game. But the Giants get maybe the best game they've ever gotten from Danny Jones last night. For all the people who rip him, and he played really well last night. He did. He played his heart out last night, and it wasn't good enough. So the NFC East has kind of turned on its head, and now this is why this game is very important. Let's get into that for a second. They're 0-2. Dallas plays Los Angeles, the Chargers, on Sunday. They're an underdog in that game. Interestingly enough, if Dallas loses, they would be 0-2. You would have two teams 0-2 to start the season off. If Philadelphia, and we'll talk to Sal Paolantonio about that in 27 minutes, if Philadelphia can somehow figure out a way to beat the 49ers for the second consecutive year, the Eagles would be the only 2-0 team in the division with two 0-2 teams. And remember, next week they would have Dallas on the schedule. If Philadelphia somehow can win these next two and have Dallas lose the next two, Dallas would start the season at 0-3. Philadelphia would start the season at 3-0. That's why the games become very interesting even this early in the year. 609-403-0973. That's the text board. 609-403-0973. Of course, you can download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play and message us through your free mobile app if you're listening on the app. And don't forget, if you're watching the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, we will always, of course, answer your questions and comments over there as well. All right, coming up on the other side, a painful night for the Giant fan. It warmed my heart, but how warm is Mike McGarry's heart? We'll talk to him about that. Bryce Harper, the Eagles, and more. The NFC East, that's all still to come here coming up in 6 minutes on the Sports Bash. Brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan is now open on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township, next to Hope Depot, online at mattblattnissan.com. That's mattblattnissan.com. All right, on the other side, Press of Atlantic City columnist Mike McGarry joins me live here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app, thanks to First Bank of Seattle.
One minute, Mike.
Show's on the road. We are at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City, right off the boardwalk. Come on in on this Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Check out all the games live here. This soccer game, I literally feel like that television is about 50 yards wide. I don't know much about the soccer game that's going on, but that television is worth watching a great football game on. And if you're a soccer fan, this one's for you. All right, we are live here on a Friday, Happy Hour Friday. Not such a happy day for Mike McGarry. Your Twitter feed was worth the price of admission last night, my friend. How are you?
Well, I do what I can to entertain the masses, don't I?
You do. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. His must-win column appears in Friday's edition of the Press. I want to ask you that one of the people watching the show on the video today, he just put this one up there, and I think this is kind of interesting. Stealing Devonta Smith out from the Giants is going to go down as an all-time Eagles move. Mark it down. Like, I'm sure you're not thinking of that last night, but all of these stats that have been rolling out, like the worst team since 2017, they have the worst record, they have the most losses, they've been 0-2 for 8 out of 9 years, and then like the ball getting dropped right out of Slayton's hands last night, and you're like, the Eagles losing that game against Washington last year wasn't such a bad idea.
Well, the way I look at it right now is, winning is a skill. In professional sports, in college sports, in high school sports, and even in youth sports. Winning is a skill like running, throwing, jumping, shooting, and the Giants don't have that skill. They invent ways to lose football games, and they did it last night, whether it be the holding call that negates the Daniel Jones penalty, the drop pass when the guy's wide open, and I don't know what's going on with today's society. I'm looking at Twitter, and some people are saying that was a tough catch. That's not a tough catch. The guy's wide open. In the words of Jerry Glanville, this is the NFL, and that stands for not for long when you don't catch the football like that. Then Washington commits the turnover. The Giants get the interception. If they get a first down and kick the field goal, the game's over. They can't get a first down. And then they line up offsides. The guy next to the center jumps the snap and is offsides. And my favorite stat, that's the 6th time since 2017 the Giants have lost on a field goal in the final 30 seconds, and 4 of those 6 field goals are on the last play. They just don't know how to win football games, and they better start soon because it's frustrating for everybody north of 195 in the state of New Jersey.
Well, let's go to they're 0-2 now for the 8th time in 9 years. Yeah. They have the worst record in football since 2017. They only have 18 wins, Mike, since 2017. Joe Judge, the head coach of this team, afterwards he didn't want to put the loss on any one person. We get paid. There's a lot of pressure. I mean, are the Giant fans on board with Joe Judge as the guy to get him out of this mess?
It's a rough day for Joe Judge today, and really one of his, he was kind of given a first-year pass last year coming in, but last night people are not happy with Joe Judge up here. I saw his post-game show. The other thing I've had, and this bleeds over to Philadelphia too, I've had enough of coaches, professional coaches coming to New York and Philadelphia and telling me what a tough sports town it is. It's great the fans take this sport seriously. We know what it takes. It's a privilege. Enough. Stop talking about the fans. Go out and win some football games. Joe Judge has preached nothing but discipline, accountability, and then the guy 2 feet from the center jumps offside on a field goal. What do you think he was going to block it? Go up the middle and this is the NFL. How many field goals get blocked a year? 5? That the guy in the middle of the line is going to block it? So enough. It's time to start winning, and it's a rough day for Joe Judge up here off of what happened last night.
What about Garrett? What did you think of Garrett last night?
I honestly think that the play calling, I know some people had some problems with the play calling, but hey, if Darius Slayton catches a wide open touchdown pass, that's a touchdown. If the guy doesn't hold on the Daniel Jones RPO, that's a touchdown. I actually thought that Daniel Jones and the offense played well last night. To me, the problem is in the DNA of the football team. Some teams invent ways to win games. Some teams invent ways to lose games. And the Giants right now are in the latter category. From like 1984 through, I think it's the 2012 Super Bowl, the Giants made plays. Like Tyree catches the ball on his helmet. The Giants made plays to win games. Since that Super Bowl win, they have invented ways to lose games.
Mike McGarry's appearance is brought to you by Calvi Electric, now offering residential services for your home and business. Visit them online at calvielectric.com. All right, so 0-2, would you classify them as done already? Must-win column. Are the Giants done, Mr. Must-Win?
Well, it's hard to say they're not done. I mean, 0-2 in the NFL. I know we've got an extra game this year. I know it's the NFC East, but 0-2 is 0-2, and it's an uphill battle. I mean, I took a look at their schedule after last night's game and went through it and did, win-loss game. And you're not giving any benefit of the doubt, but, I see a team right now that's, at a 7-win max. So, I mean, there's always hope. I guess they could go on a winning streak. I think they got the Falcons coming up this week, who were absolutely horrendous last week. So we'll see what happens. But 0-2 is brutal, And by the way, I see a lot of Eagles fans on here chiming in. Let me say something. Eagles fans should have been rooting for the Giants last night, because Washington would have been 0-1 in the division and 0-2 overall and 0-2 at home. So now Washington has kind of righted the ship, and they're a pretty good football team. So Washington would have been in more. Their 0-2 would have been worse than the Giants 0-2 if they had lost.
I'll tell you, though, I was very disappointed in Washington's defense last night. Like, I thought they would really control the line of scrimmage with their defensive front. The Giants' line, they weren't great, but, man, I mean, Chase Young was like almost a non-factor in the game last night. Well,
that's where I would give the Giants some credit, to where the fact that they did improve off the performance against Denver. They did go down there and provide Daniel Jones with some time. He is effective. They did use his mobility. They did make some plays. That's where I would give the Giants some credit. On the flip side of it, the other thing is, the Giants defense, which was supposed to be the better part of the team coming in, they need to stop at one point late in the game. And what did it take Washington? 2 plays with Tyler Heineke at quarterback to go down the field and score a touchdown. I mean, again, it's a team that invents ways to lose football games.
Mike, I like how you tweeted that the Giants must have sold their soul for beating the Patriots, right?
Right, because they haven't made a play since 2012, and that's almost 10 years ago. So it's frustrating, and all the stats were out last night. Like you said, they're the worst team in football since whenever, and they're just a frustrating team to watch. And I think the stat that sums it up again is that field goal stat. They've lost 6 games since 2017 on field goals in the last 30 seconds, 4 of them on the last play. That's hard to do, and somehow they've accomplished it.
Okay, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. We talk 3 times a week, and it feels like one day we say the Phillies are done. The next day we're not so sure. Well, here we are on the third day. They won last night. They were down 7-0. They got off the mat like the Undertaker, and the Braves lost. They're 3 back with 17 to go. You're a Met guy. 17 games, 7-17. They're only 3 with 17 to go now.
Yeah, 4 in the loss column, though, so that's the actual column I think you got to look at. It's a big weekend. The Phillies are up in New York. I believe the Braves are on the West Coast.
10-game road trip out west, Michael.
Right, so this is a big opportunity for a Phillies team that, depending on your perspective, is either hanging in there and being very resilient, or just cannot be put out of its misery by either going on the losing streak to get eliminated, or a winning streak to be closer. So give them credit. And you know what? Give Bryce Harper a lot of credit, because he is not getting the credit, I think, for the year that he deserves. He is simply carrying this team, on his back and helping them hang in there. So give them credit. They've got another opportunity. I still think it's a long shot, but it's almost like we've said it again, like this is their last chance. Well, this weekend might really be their last chance.
Well, it's funny because I just looked. They got a 10-game West Coast trip. They play San Francisco, Arizona, San Diego. Philadelphia's got the Mets, Baltimore, Pittsburgh. Now, schedule-wise, right. It sounds like Philly's got a clear advantage, and then they play each other, Atlanta and Philadelphia. So after the 2 10-game stretches, when that series gets Philadelphia-Atlanta, where is that going to be in your head?
I think to have a realistic shot at it, I think the Phillies have to be within a game of the Braves when they head down to Atlanta. I think it has to be a game, not 2, not 3. I think it has to be 1. Where I think it'll be exactly where it is now. I think it'll be in the 3.5, 4 range. I think, the Phillies have proven that they are no sure things against anybody. And look at the Baltimore Orioles. They beat the New York Yankees last night. So although their record is not good, nothing can be taken for granted there. So I think when they head to Atlanta, if they're within a game, they'll have a shot. But I think it's going to be exactly kind of where it is now in that 3.5, 4 range.
Mike, the same story in Philadelphia is with the Yankees. I mean, they've lost like 7 games to the Orioles, and you wonder like how these teams can't figure out ways to just, everybody else beats up on these teams. The Phillies have the problems with Arizona, Colorado. We know their problems with the Marlins, but if you can't pick up 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 with Pittsburgh and Baltimore, man, that's a big problem.
Right, and a lot of times it's when you play these guys. Like the Yankees played the Orioles a lot earlier in the year when the Yankees were really struggling. Now they've got them now where they're not playing that great. But like you said, the opportunity is here for the Phillies. But again, when I look at the Phillies and you look at the personnel that they're putting out on the field, their lineup isn't much better than the lineups the Orioles and the Pirates are putting out there. So it's no sure thing. So that's why I think we're going to be right where we are, come the series in Atlanta. The Phillies got to figure out something to do with. They survived the bullpen game yesterday, right? I don't think they can survive another bullpen like that again. It's not every day you're going to come back from 7-0 deficits.
Philadelphia hosting San Francisco. It feels like this week, Mike, while the Giants had their issues and everybody's talking about this, that, and the other, the Eagles are all of a sudden it feels like people are starting to feel, this team's not as bad as I thought. And they got San Francisco coming in who is really beat up, man. They've got a lot of injuries. So what happens on Sunday?
I think it's a big game obviously it's a big game for the Eagles. If they win, they're 2-0, they're at home. And with the teams they've got coming up, the Monday trip to Dallas, Tampa and Kansas City both coming up, I think this is a big game for the Eagles to win. And like you said, San Francisco, I would normally think that San Francisco would come in here and be able to win this football game. But I'm worried, like you said, about the injuries for the second year in a row. San Francisco has just been torn apart by injuries and had the injury bug. So it's a prime opportunity for the Eagles here, a great opportunity for them to get to be 2-0. And if they don't take advantage of it, now the script flips, right? Now they're 1-1 going to Dallas. Who knows? Maybe Dallas loses to San Diego. Dallas is 0-2. They're going to be desperate on that Monday night. So it's a great opportunity for the Eagles to get to 2-0. Normally, I'd pick the 49ers to win the football game, but I'm a little worried about the injury component of San Francisco. But a great, great opportunity for the Eagles to maybe to take advantage of the breaks they've gotten and go forward from there.
How about that? You hear that, everybody? McGarry thinks the Eagles beat the 49ers on Sunday. So you got Eagles, Niners, Phillies, Mets this weekend, and you got a great high school lineup. Where are you going to be tonight?
I'll be at Mainland Regional. Great rivalry, Ocean City versus Mainland Regional. 3-0 Ocean City had not allowed a point yet this season against a 2-1 Mainland team. It gets late early in high school football. So for Ocean City, for a win to go to 4-0 or Mainland to go to 3-1, and of course the rivalry and everything that entails. I wrote my must win about it today. Anytime those two schools play in any sport, it's a big deal, and it's especially a big deal when it's football.
Yeah, I tweeted that I was a part of one of those games that Kevin Sinclair ran me over. So there you go.
You did your share. You've done your share.
Exactly. 1993, 4. I don't know. He was pretty good. So that's this weekend. You got the Phillies and Mets. You got the Eagles and Niners. You've got high school football. Mike will be covering it all. And, of course, he'll be back on Monday to recap the weekend. We'll see. Phillies and Mets, and the Braves are playing San Francisco. So, and by the way, Vince Velasquez is going to pitch tonight for the wild card, so keep an eye on that Padre game. I don't think Arrieta's scheduled to go, but a couple of former Phils could be. And by the way, you're rooting for Vince Velasquez tonight, and you're rooting for Gabe Kapler tonight.
Right. Strange bedfellows. Who would have thought we'd see Vince Velasquez throwing in a playoff in a big late September game, but not for the Phillies. Again, pitching for the team, that he struck out 16 for, which is the reason why he was around for 5 years here,
At AC Press McGarry. Mike, have a great weekend, man.
All right, we'll see you later, Mike.
That's fun. McGarry's appearance is brought to you by Calvi Electric, now offering residential services for your home and business. Online at calvielectric.com. Hey, you're going to want to listen starting Monday. We told you a chance to play golf with the PT and I at this year's LPGA Pro-Am. The Pro-Am is back, and that is always a great time. You can play golf with me, Pete Thompson, and
30
you
seconds.
and a LPGA professional. The registration start Monday. Make sure you download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play. You can message us through your
20.
phone and, of course, watch the show live on YouTube and Twitter. Coming up on the other side, it is a Sal Pal Friday. Sal Paolantonio
10
is
seconds.
here. The Eagles won. Does he think they can do it again? Find out his 3 keys to the
5
game.
seconds.
Coming up next here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. A Friday edition of the Sports Bash is live at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. You can stop on out all weekend long for fantastic action. Great college card this weekend and a really good NFL card, the Eagles and the Niners. That is a 1 o'clock kickoff, and you can only hear it right here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill, at Mike Gill Show. Follow me on Twitter. And, of course, you can download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle. This is a Sal Pal Friday. We will bring in ESPN senior NFL correspondent Sal Paolantonio here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks to our guy Johnny G and the Burger Realty team in Ocean City, always giving us a nice dose of Sal Paolantonio on a Sal Pal Friday. It always feels good on these Fridays when the Eagles win that previous week. And I don't know, a surprise victory. I know you picked them to win last week, Sal, as I did as well. But 32-6. And now every time I turned around this week on the television, there was Sal Paolantonio live from the NovaCare complex covering the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. Sal, what's going on, man? No question. So one of the things that I've been kind of asking the listeners throughout the week and getting a variety of answers is, from the game Sunday, what is sustainable? Something that maybe you're like, wow, I can't believe they did this, but that it will be sustainable throughout the rest of the season. Correct. Right. Well, it's something it was one of your last week. The keys were get Matt Ryan off his spot. I think you saw that. Their defensive line really controlled. Hargrave had a tremendous impact. Also, Ridgeway, they were getting pressure up the middle, getting him off the spot. That was one of your keys. The other was simple. Don't turn the ball over, but he didn't do that. And he knew when to get rid of the ball. There were times when there was no play there, and he just said, all right, I'll live to fight another day. That was a huge problem in the previous season, correct? Yep. Yeah, it's funny you say that. Yesterday we had a former Eagles assistant on the show, and he made the reference of, look, the team invested a lot of money into offensive weapons, and they just didn't get the job done. I mean, he didn't call out Wentz by name, but he said we invested a lot of money, draft picks, in wide receivers, in the quarterback position, and didn't get the job done. Now, this year, they have a first-round pick. They've got a first-round pick receiver last year. So they do have some high draft capital. How did those how are the wide receivers able to perform differently? Part of which, and the coach did mention the offensive line being the way it was last year really affected the way they called games. But that should really help Sirianni call a game with this offensive line the way they played. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, I like the play that you break down. There's so many things there. The offensive line up front, I mean, Sayamala, I thought had a really good game. And of the five guys on the line, he gets the least amount of fanfare. But the double team that him and Kelsey get, and then Mailata just absolutely dominates his guy. The Red Sea parts on that thing, too. I mean, there was nobody. The five guys up front, now they're going to have a different challenge this week up front. But for 1 week, those five guys really – really told the story, man. Right. Conversely, Sal, last year in the game, Kittle had 15 catches on 15 targets for 183 yards. I don't know. Do you just let him have his day? Right now, yesterday we talked with Ryan Paganetti, who was a linebacker coach with the Eagles last year. He's also a very interesting story. I don't know if you know Ryan's. He's the guy with the game management and a lot of the fourth down analytics stuff. He suggested that the 49ers' outside weapons don't scare you enough that you can use Slay on Kittle on third and obvious passing situations. You jive with that? He had a big game in week one. There's no question about that. What do you have, like 180 yards in week one, too? So, yeah, this is definitely a different I do want to ask you about, I have gone through that book. I do know the author. Yeah. Yeah, and he was very informative with some of the things that he brought to our conversation yesterday, and one of them was with yes. All right, so this is very interesting because San Francisco's got some injury issues this week. That wasn't in the conversation earlier, but they've got a bunch of guys kind of banged up here. So Sal Pal's keys for this week will be what? Climb back into the game, 27-24 Eagles. All right, so they have to climb back into the game. How'd they get behind? Huh. He did. Let me ask you about the deal the Eagles made with Mailata. Obviously, 4 years. He got big-time money. How do you like that matchup with Bosa? How's that going to go? That would probably be yeah. I'll tell you, he's endearing himself to the fan base. Let's say that, right? Yeah, right. One of the I texted you. Right. I was going to say, I texted you last week. Your stand-up was outstanding in Buffalo. I don't know how you got the whole crowd in unison behind you to get involved like that, but that game was a little bit of a surprise the way it went. But as you said, the Pittsburgh defense was tremendous last week. Right. Right. I'm glad you brought this up, though, because you emailed me this week that stat, 10%. You know what we talk about? Oh, the Eagles don't blitz enough. They don't blitz. They don't blitz. The 6 teams at the bottom of that list who blitzed the least, they all won last week. Eagles, 10%. They blitzed 10. What was it? Pittsburgh blitzed what? 1%. I think it was 1% last week. Crazy. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. By the way, as you brought up on Wednesday's Sports Center, the Jalen Hurts, is it too much hype? What do you think? Okay. Oh, Yep. Well, as you said in the offseason, Sal, if the quarterback last year just was mediocre, they'd probably win a handful more games. So they get – yeah, right. Agree. Sal Pal says 27-24 Eagles. They come from behind to win that game. That should be a nice link. And by the way, Lincoln Financial Field will have people in it for the first time, real people for the first time in a long time. That'll be a sight to see as well, I'm sure. Yeah. All right, my man. Sal Paolantonio live. Are you going to be in Philadelphia? They sending you to Philly? Sal Paolantonio, Sal Pal Friday. Thanks to our guys, Johnny G, Burger Realty. Make sure Johnny G's a part of your call if you need to find something in the Ocean City area. All right, Sal. Enjoy it. That's Sal Paolantonio. It's a Sal Pal Friday here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. He likes the Eagles 27-24. How about that? Very interesting. So we'll get to your comments, calls, tweets, comments, messages. If you have the download on the free mobile app, make sure you hit us up on the message button. And, of course, you can text us 609-403-0973. So those of you who watch the show on YouTube, and you know that I always write my notes down. These are my Sal Pal notes that I can't read, right? I can't read any of this stuff. I don't know why I even try. I write this stuff down. I can't read any of it, but I will make some sense of it when we come back. Sports Bash is live on 97.3 ESPN at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. It's going to be a great weekend in here. I can tell you that much. We got great college football. In fact, Notre Dame this weekend is a 2:30 start. And we'll have that game for you live on 97.3 ESPN. So you can listen to Notre Dame this weekend, 2:30 against Purdue. You could watch that game right here and bet on all the action at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. All right, when we come back, the Sports Bash is live. I'm going to go through Sal Pal's some keys, his what I asked him was what is sustainable. I want to see if I agree with them. Do you guys agree with them? That's coming up next here. Plus Bob Wankel on the Phillies weekend coming up in 20 minutes. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle. All right, we'll get to your text messages, your app messages, your video messages. Sports Bash Live at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City, a perfect place for you to spend the weekend watching football. By the way, the football this weekend on 97.3 ESPN, Notre Dame and Purdue at 2:30, followed by Penn State and Auburn. That's around a 7 o'clock kickoff. You can listen to both those games only on 97.3 ESPN. Sunday, we've got Eagles-Niners, followed by Cowboys-Chargers, and then Sunday Night Football. I thought I had the notes for that written down here somewhere, but I can't read my handwriting. So here's my stuff from the Sal Pal interview. You know, this is like the pro-Sal Pal interview is me trying to read my chicken scratch of the things that stood out from Sal Pal. But he said two things. I asked him, what's sustainable? All right, what is sustainable that Philadelphia did against Atlanta? We've been asking you guys that all week, so I wanted to see what his was. And his was very interesting. They're well coached. And he thinks that's sustainable. If I was to tell you the Eagles are a well-coached football team, and you watched the two clown teams play last night, you would say that's a big advantage because the New York Football Giants are not well coached, and somehow, some way, Ron Rivera got to a Super Bowl, is a very well-respected coach, but he was terrible last night. The Washington football team was not a well-coached football team last night. Last year, think about this. Many people surmised that the Eagles had a big advantage in the NFC East. Why? Well, they had their coaching staff back together. Dallas, Mike McCarthy, he was new. Ron Rivera, Washington, he was new. And Joe Judge was a first-time head coach. Those type of things that we just go gadget reach for don't come into play. If you're a good coach, you're a good coach, whether you've ever coached a game before in your life or not. You either know what you're doing or you don't. Yeah, you can get better. You can learn. You can evolve. But let's be honest. Jason Garrett's Jason Garrett. He stinks. He's on that Giants staff, which means they stink. The Washington football team, they've got the same issues over and over again. What Sal Paolantonio said, I think, really is a very interesting point to bring up. We're always saying, well, this matchup, that matchup, this guy against that guy. His two things both were coaching. What's sustainable, I asked. No big play. The philosophy of the defensive coordinator, that was his number one. The philosophy of the defensive coordinator, very interesting. Coaching point. Two, well coached, great alignment. No missed blocks up front. Did you watch those two teams try to play offensive line last night? I say try to play offensive line. I actually give the Giants a little bit of credit. Their offensive line was mediocre as opposed to extremely poor, which is typical for them. They were actually average last night. I mean, Chase Young, who I bet one or more sacks, I got screwed on that because somehow Andrew Thomas, the left tackle, decided he was going to be a fourth overall pick. He actually played pretty well last night. I'll give him some credit. But the point that Sal Pal makes about coaching is not something that anybody factored into the equation for this season. And I think it needs to be brought up. The other thing that he brought up was no turnovers. And he said if Hurts has no turnovers, not only will they win, they can win a lot of games. You know, it's funny because when you say in the offseason, before the season starts, hey, this could happen, that could happen, and the team has 4 wins the year before, you're obviously just overly optimistic. The fact of the matter is simple. If you watch the two teams that played last night, they have problems on the offensive line. The Giants more so than Washington does. If you have problems on the offensive line, you're going to have problems all year long. Right now, and that's today, we are Friday afternoon. Right now, today, Philadelphia doesn't have problems on their offensive line. They don't have a weak spot on the offensive line. Not one. Mailata was the highest ranked guard in football last week. Excuse me, Seymala, not Mailata. Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Kelsey, and Mailata. Seymala's the one that you have the most concern about. He was the best of the lot last week. So this week, as Sal said, there's a big difference between playing Atlanta and playing San Francisco. And the difference starts up front. That's the big difference in this whole shebang. And here's the three things, as he mentioned. They didn't give up the big play last week. Well, this week is interesting. Deebo Samuel had a monster game last week, okay? If he gets behind you, remember last year they played that game, Brandon Ayuk had the running jump over everybody. Ayuk might not even be a factor this week. Elijah Mitchell is the running back this week. So how does he kind of factor into the game? He's another guy that you don't have a lot of tape on, you don't know whole much about. What they do well, going back to what Sal just said, well coached. They scheme their running game very, very well. But the George Kittle thing, yesterday we had former Eagles assistant coach Ryan Paganetti on the show. And what he said, and he was on the staff last year, and I said, you guys didn't do such a good job on Kittle. And he laughed. He said, well, if you had our personnel, basically, you weren't going to do it. It's really interesting, though, to hear it from someone who was on the staff tell you, like, hey, listen, one of the problems we had last year offensively is we couldn't call the game we wanted to call because we had a different guy playing on the offensive line almost every single week. The other thing that he adds into the equation is, hey, look, we wanted to do different things on defense, but when we had the corners that we had, there was a lot of things that we just simply could not do. And one of the things they just could not do, right, was in the game against San Francisco, which was very evident, they couldn't get creative with the way they defended George Kittle, and he caught 15 passes in the game for 183 yards and a touchdown. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973 in Atlanta County. If you are texting in, I will read off some of the texts coming up in just a little bit. I like this one. This one's from earlier in the day. Wow, Mike, that soliloquy about the Giants fan, that warmed my heart so much. I had to chime in because I feel just the way you do, and I have some great Giant fans that I'm probably going to have to talk off the ledge pretty soon. So thank you for that most entertaining passage. Truly pleasurable. That's from Jay Jones checking in. I'm glad I can make your happy hour Friday a good one. And to all the Giant fans out there, I do it in jest. But you warmed my heart so much last night with that inept performance, especially in like the last 4.5 minutes of the game. I love watching the Giants drop another pass that could have sealed the deal. It only happens to the team in Big Blue. Hashtag Giants Pride. I think they got rid of that, actually. I don't think they use that hashtag any longer. The Giants Pride. You know how each team on Twitter, you use a certain hashtag and it'll actually like bring up their logo? The Giants used to be hashtag Giants Pride. I think I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure they ditched that this year. I think the pride is pretty much gone from that team. 18 wins over the last 5 seasons. Yeah, the pride's going to get it kind of sucked out of you at that point. All right, coming up, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. A tremendous viewing experience for you and your friends. That's the big part. You and your friends can come here, get carte blanche of the televisions. They got the great beer wall over there. You put your bets in, your same game parlays, and you can watch it all right here on the massive, massive television sets. Notre Dame tomorrow, 2:30. Penn State tomorrow night. Eagles on Sunday. Dallas follows, and then the Sunday night game. So you got just a little bit of everything tonight. The Phillies take on the Mets. And by the way, the Phillies and the Mets are the Sunday night baseball game this week. So you got all the action here at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. The Sports Bash is brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. All right, when we come back, the Phillies and the Mets. Are they out of it yet? Can Bryce Harper take this team someplace they haven't been in 10 seasons? Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad will join me. We'll have a little Phil's discussion. And then football at 4 with Adam Kaplan. And then the PT for Happy Hour Friday. We'll have a lot of fun the last 2 hours of the show. You're going to want to stick around here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app, thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle.
$50 seconds, Mike.
All right, a happy hour Friday live at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. If I had the opportunity, now I'm on the road, so it's a little harder for me to do things with the video portion of the show. But if I could show Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad we would essentially open up with the Undertaker meme of him coming out of the casket. Because we've talked a lot, Bob, is the team alive? Are they out of this thing? They're 3 back with 17 to go. But this is interesting. You've got one team out in San Francisco on a 10-game West Coast trip, and you got another team about ready to take on the Mets, Orioles, and Pirates. I don't think you can handpick 3 better punching bags than those 3. And Atlanta's going out west. They got San Francisco, Arizona, and San Diego. So 3 back, 17 to go. In or out?
Out. Listen, we'll start by saying.
Sounds like that newborn has kept you up too much.
No, I mean, listen, I don't mean to come across as negative here. I guess it could be interesting the next couple of weeks. But listen, I don't see it. I don't think that there's any reason to trust the Phillies, and I don't think that 2 wins against the Cubs, is really any reason to feel any differently than I did after they lost 4 out of 5 games to begin a homestand against 2 teams that were, combined almost 50 games under 500 on the road this season. So last night was very impressive, the way that they fall behind by 7. They go on and end up blowing out the Cubs, and that's great. And resiliency is wonderful and all of that. But the fact of the matter is that their deficiencies are why they were losing that game 7-0 to begin with. The fact that you're asking guys like J.D. Hammer, who was DFA'd earlier this afternoon, and again, Matt Moore. You talk about Vince Velasquez, and I know how you feel about Vince. That's how I feel when I watch Matt Moore pitch. I mean, the guy just nibbling the corners, walking guys left and right. When he's in the zone, he gets battered. The fact that they're asking this guy to make meaningful pitches in big spots is insane to me right now. So I do not trust this team. I do not believe that even with an advantageous schedule that they are going to catch Atlanta or leapfrog the 3 teams they'll need to leapfrog in order to win that second wild card spot.
It's interesting. There's a lot to unpack there. I didn't know Hammer got DFA'd. I was making.
I shouldn't say DFA'd. I should say he was sent down today.
Okay. Regardless, I mean, they call him up into the bullpen game thing. They've won the last 2 bullpen, or maybe 2 out of the last 3, I guess. So it hasn't really bit them yet, right?
Yes and no. I mean, because it's so taxing to ask your bullpen to have to take down those types of innings. There can be kind of like a reverberation effect. It's not just that game in isolation. That can have a lasting impact beyond that game. Now, listen, they go to New York this weekend, and they take Zach Wheeler, who'll get the ball tonight, and he's thrown 22 consecutive scoreless innings against the Mets this season. And obviously, you'll recall the last time that he pitched against his former team, he threw a complete game shutout. He was absolutely outstanding, 11 strikeouts. The Phillies have the advantage tonight against Taijuan Walker. They have the advantage, in theory, throwing Aaron Nola up against Carlos Carrasco, and then they finish out the series with Kyle Gibson on Sunday. So they have an opportunity to win this series against the Mets, who, for as miserable as the Phillies are, the Mets are just – they're worse. And then they come back and they have games against the Pirates and Orioles, who are 2 of the worst teams in baseball. So, when you look at the schedule and you look at the way that things kind of shape up for this team, should they be able to make one last gasp? Sure, especially if Bryce Harper continues to play the way that he has, which in my estimation is like the National League MVP. I guess you can work yourself into saying, yeah, sure, they have a shot. I wouldn't bet on it. I don't believe in this team. I think that they have shown more than enough reason to give doubt.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel the same way you do. I actually said last week, I think they'll finish under 500. And then I look, I'm like, are you kidding me? They're going to play the Mets. They've got Baltimore and they've got Pittsburgh. And yes, they have struggled against the Arizonas and the Colorados, but it almost like lines up that you've buried them, put them away, and then Atlanta has got this stretch of games out west where you're like, well, I don't know that they're going to get through this minefield either. I mean, you're rooting for Gabe Kapler to beat the Braves. You've got Vince Velasquez, for God's sakes, pitching in a game that you're kind of rooting for him as well. So, I mean, it's just such an odd scenario that at the end you might say, guess who might just kind of pull out of this?
Yeah, I mean, it is possible. I reached my breaking point with the giving the benefit of the doubt earlier this week with the first loss to the Cubs, though. Listen, I wrote a column today, and basically I said it's impossible to watch the Phillies and not think about the idea of what if with this team. But you can excuse all of their failings and all of their shortcomings up until as recently as this last homestand. And if they simply would have gone 3-2 at the start of it rather than 1-4 against the Rockies and the Cubs, you're talking about a team that would have an opportunity by the end of the night to be holding down a playoff spot, whether it be tied for the NL East lead or leading the wild card. But they couldn't even manage that, even with everything stacked so favorably in front of them. And so I just don't know how you can look at this and say, oh, the Pirates, the Orioles, and the Braves schedule's a little harder right now, and think, yeah, they're going to run this team down. I just don't think you can do it.
I'm like so in step with what you're saying. I just feel like, my gosh, you can't, like, you've lost to Colorado, you've lost to Arizona. Can you continue to keep losing to the dreck of the league? Like, at some point, you've got to turn around and be like, all right, we're going to they play 4 against one of the two, Baltimore or Pittsburgh. They have 4 against. I'm imagining Pittsburgh. I don't think you'll play a 4-game set against an American League team, but it's like, at some point, the losses against these terrible teams, you've got to kind of even them back out, right?
Yeah, and listen, I think that if they are going to win the wild card, and you consider just the volume of teams that remain in the mix there, they're probably going to have to go 8-10 over the next 10 games between the Mets, the Pirates, and the Orioles. I would think that 8-2 over a 10-game stretch would probably give you an opportunity to realistically win the wild card.
Okay.
In order to kind of stick around and make that series in Atlanta a little bit more meaningful or to make it interesting, I think that they're probably going to have to win 6 or 7 games out of the next 10 to give themselves a shot playing Atlanta head up. Can they do that? Should they do that? Sure. It really does start this weekend, though. You can't go out and get swept by the Mets. You can't lose this series to the Mets. In fact, I think really to kind of offset some of the damage that you did, some of the self-inflicted wounds of this past homestand, you probably have to sweep the Mets. And I don't know that feels like a big ask for a team that struggles the way that they do on the road. That being said, one thing I do want to hit on is just, what Bryce Harper has done. And I think that, it's not a stretch to say, and I know that Fernando Tatis Jr. is still the betting favorite to win the MVP. But when you just look at Bryce Harper's numbers across the board, and you know about the OPS, and he's starting to compile some RBI numbers now. The power numbers are creeping into the mid-30s here. I read this earlier. Kenny Ayers, one of the Phillies PR guys, sent it out in an email. There are 4 players since the invention of the All-Star game, the advent of the All-Star game back in 1933, that have an OPS as high as Bryce Harper's in the second half of this season, which is 1255. And it's Barry Bonds, it's Ted Williams, it's Albert Bell, and Ryan Howard. Those are the only 4 players that have a 1255 OPS or higher post All-Star break over the last 90 years. And so what he's doing right now is just absolutely outstanding. And it's a shame that it's coming in what I think is going to be a lost season.
Yeah, I know it's I think Matt Gelb wrote about, hey, you're going to waste an MVP type season. And one of these 13 years, I mean, you can't say he's going to win multiple MVPs. You would think if you get 1 or 2 and to not make the playoffs would be a shame. You wrote about, like, if only. How is Dave, you said, like, it's hard to not watch and think, if only. How is Dave Dombrowski watching these games?
I think that Dave Dombrowski looks at this and says, this team wasn't very good. Like, we didn't think that this was a 90-win team. We didn't expect it to win the division. We thought if things would break right, maybe we could get in. He's talked multiple times about the weakness of the NL East and the way that things kind of materialized. But I don't think that he entered this year with a great deal of urgency to make this team that immediate contender and have them make a postseason run. I really think that this was always a 2-year plan. I know I've said this on your show before. I don't mean to belabor the point, but I really do think that this is an evaluation period in which he wanted to try to make this team as competitive as possible, perhaps secure a playoff spot in the process. But I don't think that this season has really gone, when you look at the Phillies specifically, much differently than the way that they probably expected internally. Now, obviously, missing the playoffs in such a weak division, if the Braves would have won 94 games, it would be different. But the Braves are vulnerable, right? And so I think the Phillies probably expected to be in this race kind of down the stretch. But the fact that they were just gifted this opportunity and haven't really been able to take advantage of it has to be very frustrating.
Very frustrating.
I really think that this team this offseason is going to try to hit that next gear. I really think that they're going to spend a little bit more. They're going to be a little bit more aggressive. And I think that it really is about 2022 and going for broke. I think that there is urgency in that organization. I think there are people that are just absolutely tired of being an afterthought come mid-September.
Yeah, I mean, you see the attendance about 16,000, so it seems that the fans have tapped out on this team, and that has to be frustrating too. Because I think we talked about they were in the race the last couple of years. They don't have anybody to watch. You go out and get Bryce Harper, who might be the MVP of the league, and you're still not coming out. That says if you're not winning and we don't believe in you, we're not coming unless you are definitively for real.
Yeah, there's no reason the fans should invest their listen, I can't tell fans what they should and should not do, but I should say I do not blame fans for not investing their time in person, their money at the ballpark to watch that product. It's just not a very inspiring product. And, they, I guess, have an opportunity to change that if they come out and have a hell of a 2 weeks here. You'll watch this fan base jump on real quick, but up until this point, I just don't think that there's really any reason to truly believe in them. And I just, this fan base is smart enough to know what's real and what's not, and I think they've sized this team up pretty well here.
We got 17 left, 3 back. Phillies and the Mets this weekend. Atlanta is out in San Francisco. They'll then go to Arizona for 4, and then 3 in San Diego. So keep your eye on both the wild card and the NL East, and of course, we will do the same. Bob Wankel crossing broad, 3 games back behind the Braves. When they play the Braves in 10 games from now, where will they be? 3? You're saying 3?
I'll have them 2 games out in Atlanta, and then the Braves finish them off in that series is kind of where I'm at.
All right. Bob Wankel crossing broad. Zach Wheeler tonight, by the way. I got the Phillies lineup. Did you see the lineup? It was out a while ago, but have you
I
seen
did
it
see
yet?
the lineup, yeah.
Herrera, Segura, Harper, Real Muto, Didi, Galvis, Miller, Vierling, and Wheeler. There you go. That's what they're going with, trying to win a game against the Mets. All right, man. We'll talk to you, pal.
Talk to you soon.
There's Bob Wankel crossing broad, covers the Phils as they get ready to take on the Mets this weekend, and they're still alive in this thing. 3 games back, 17 to go. They've been worse out in the past. It is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Week 1 may be over, but the season's just getting started at the DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. To kick off Week 2, DraftKings is giving all new customers a can't-miss offer. Bet just $1 on any football game this week and receive $200 in free bets instantly, no matter what. That's right. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving all new customers $200 in free bets instantly when they bet at least $1 on any football game. DraftKings is safe, reliable, and secure, making it easy for you to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use my promo code 973 to receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any football game. That's my promo code 973 to get $200 in free bets instantly this week at the DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. And don't forget, download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play. You can message us through the app. You get all of our content from our team of writers on the Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, and Flyers. Pete Thompson, a happy hour Friday, is actually in the house here at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. So the PT and I will hash out Eagles and Niners over the next couple of hours. Coming up on the other side, it is football at 4. Adam Kaplan is here. We'll get his thoughts on this Eagles-Niners matchup, which, by the way, the injury report for the Niners just came out. And Dre Greenlaw is out. Emmanuel Mosley is doubtful. Eric Armstead is questionable. Marcel Harris is questionable. And Javon Kinlaw is questionable as well. So the Niners kind of banged up in this game. Philadelphia, their injury report, pretty clean for the game on Sunday. It looks like the only guy out for Philadelphia is going to be Rodney McLeod. He will not play in the game. Other than that, I think you're going to get pretty much a full slate of Eagles, much different from every week last year where this offensive lineman was out and that offensive lineman was out and this guy wasn't going to play and that guy had to fill in. The Eagles, the biggest factor across the offensive line, Mailata,
30 seconds.
Mala, Kelsey, Brooks, Johnson, all healthy. All healthy. By the way, for today,
20.
out for the game, as I told you, is McLeod. Questionable for the game is Epps. Everybody else is set to play, including the great blocking wide receiver,
10 seconds.
J.J. Arthego-Whiteside. All right, on the other side, Adam Kaplan, football at 4.
5 seconds.
Right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
It's College Football Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. This is Walter Weiser. Join me.
Antonio's animation
1 minute, Mike. I hear you, Pete. Pete, make sure you adjust the mic so it's not too close to your mouth, okay? See where Gills is? Perfect. Whatever that noise is, you guys need to stop it. It's coming through the mics.
All right, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, you can check out the Inside the Birds podcast with Adam Kaplan and Jeff Mosher. Don't forget the Inside the Birds pregame show on Sunday at 10 a.m. to get you ready for the Eagles and the 49ers. Today, it's Adam Kaplan. He is in the house for today's edition of Football at 4, and it's brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destination all season long at the Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. There he is, Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast, a 1-0 Eagles team, 32-6, though, Adam. All right, they won the game, but 32-6, is that the story as we enter Philadelphia and San Francisco?
Yeah, no doubt. Look, that was incredibly impressive. All last week, I stuck with the Eagles. I never backed down. Start the week on Monday. I was going to pick the Eagles. All the information I gathered led me to pick the Eagles. I picked them 24-20. I didn't see it as a blowout. And really, Mike, the first series of the game, I'm scratching my head. I'm like, wow, I'm kind of shocked that Atlanta drove down the field like that. But what set up the Eagles for success was they did not give up a touchdown. Despite how Atlanta just marched down the field, all these big runs, they seemingly couldn't stop Calvin Ridley on the first drive. And then after that, really after the second series, Atlanta's offense was shut down the rest of the game. It's really incredible, the adjustments that the coaches made. The discipline got better against the run as the second quarter progressed, and they could not get a thing done in the passing game. Matt Ryan held on to the ball a lot, and they did some things we didn't know they were going to do. There's no way we would know. We don't have their game plan. It was something to see. I got to give these coaches credit. They had their players ready to play, whereas Atlanta completely got out-coached and out-schemed.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because obviously one of the things we didn't know was the coaching staff, how well prepared this Philadelphia Eagles team was. What impressed you about the preparation that the coaching staff, both on the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball?
All right, Mike, let's get started with offense, right? So they kind of knew, at least they figured out that Atlanta would go with a lot of zone defense, or they came into the game saying, you know what, we're going to help Jalen Hurts out. We're going to go with what we believe will help him as a get out of his hands quickly, help him get comfortable and accurate. They got it out of his hands quickly. A lot of run after the catch. This is our first scoop that we put out back in, February, for Jeff and I did on our show, was that we had heard this is going to be more of a West Coast offensive scheme. Where they called it West Coast or not, it was irrelevant. It's what do they see this conceptually? It's a lot of get it out quickly, whoever the quarterback was. And now then, I don't know if Nick Sirianni knew who the quarterback was going to be, whether it's going to be Wentz then, would eventually be traded in March, or Jalen Hurts. But whatever it was going to be, it was going to force the quarterback to get out of the hands quickly. Well, it's exactly what happened. And you know what? Hurts was super accurate. The big thing, though, Mike, this was an issue for him in training camp, is being decisive. The word that I received was that there were too many instances where he'd hold on the ball too long and not get rid of it. He wasn't looking to run, but he was indecisive with it. The progression that he made was he wasn't always looking to run. Like last summer, because he had no offseason and no preseason, he just was so far behind in his learning. And this year, obviously, he's got a better idea, though it's a new offense for him. yet another one in his career. Oklahoma, Alabama, Eagles year 1, Eagles year 2. It's really remarkable what he's gone through. But he did a very good job, very accurate, and you got to feel really good if you're an Eagles fan on the road. And remember now, we didn't know this going into the game. They opened the dome, so it was warmer in there. There's some challenges on the road, but apparently the Eagle fans travel pretty well down south. And just overall, Mike, their offense was really efficient. Save a couple of plays that they'd like to have back. The offensive line was absolutely dominant, particularly Jordan Mailata, who, from what we were hearing, had his best game as a pass blocker in his short career.
It's funny you say that because, Mailata, Seimala, Kelsey, Brooks, Johnson, they're all going to play again this week. They didn't have that happen last year. And the having that continuity with those 5 guys, how that could change the outlook for each week, including the game against a very good defensive front this week.
Right. And then you look at, last week, the Eagles defense, before we get to the Niners, the Eagles defense brought it. They really did. They were so consistent. After those first couple series, Jonathan Gannon threw so much at Matt Ryan. Now, I'm surprised he didn't turn it over. The Eagles are a zone defense. That's what we were told months ago, and that's what they are. Now, how they deploy it was a little different from what we had heard in training camp, but that doesn't mean it won't change this week. In fact, Gannon is so sharp mentally, and he just has such an idea of conceptually what this defense should look like. It would not surprise me if he changes coverage up once again. So that's the thing I love about this coaching staff. They're adaptable, they're pliable, and that's what you really need in the National Football League.
Yeah, right. So there's so much intrigue in this game because last week, as you mentioned, we felt that the Eagles had a offensive line advantage against their defensive front. We also felt the Eagles had a defensive line advantage against their offensive line. Let's look at those 2 areas this week. Phillies offensive front against the San Francisco defensive front, which is very good. That offensive line versus San Francisco front 7.
All right, so let's look at the Niners have injury issues. Eric Armstead, 91, should play with his adductor injury. Javon Kinlaw, they think he's going to play, as I understand it. They don't know 100% for sure. He's listed as questionable. He didn't play last week. That definitely was probably a factor in the Lions coming back. So they got journeymen like Zach Kerr, who's been around a long time, has been on a bunch of teams. He would fill in if Kinlaw can't play. They'd have to go to committee at D tackle. Nick Bosa did not play his usual amount of snaps, but he certainly was impactful. That's a guy who's the right defensive end who will line up over Mailata. This will be a challenge for him. What Bosa has is he gets low like his brother. He's actually more explosive than his brother Joey. Now, of course, he's come back from an ACL injury, so I don't know that'll be himself. You said the front 7. This is a major injury. Drake Greenlaw, one of the better young outside linebackers in the league. He's done. He's going to have groin surgery. Could be out as much as 2 months. They'll see what happens when the surgery is done. That'll crush them. They have no depth at outside linebacker. That all these injuries, Mike, this helps the Eagles. There's no question about it. So just comparing them, I think the Eagles will hold up fairly well. Again, D Ford is a speed rusher. He's 55. He's had significant injury issues ever since they traded for him from Kansas City. He came in 3 years ago with a pre-existing injury. He has never been the same. But they get what they can out of him. I do like the Eagles' chances here to win because of these injuries up front.
All right. We had Sal on earlier. He mentioned he likes Ertz and Goddard this week. You just mentioned the linebacker problem. So how about Ertz and Goddard this week? Because we talked about it last week, Adam. That was one of the storylines. How many snaps? How many targets? Well, Ertz had that hamstring issue, so I don't know how much we could read into that, but he got like 61% of the snaps. I think that Goddard was around 74, somewhere in there. So I don't know how much of a read we get on playing time there, but they should have some room to roam this week.
Yeah, we know Goddard's going to play more than Ertz. That was never in question. The question is how much more will he play more than Ertz? And Ertz had the hamstring injury. I give him credit for coming back in. The difference is very simple. Goddard's a 3-down tight end. The Eagles don't see him like that. I mean, they could do it. We don't have a hold, though, on how much 12 versus 11. The Eagles last year played the most snaps of 12 personnel 33.2% of the time. I know it won't be that this year. I can't tell you if it's going to be 25, 27. We won't know. I would say after the quarter mark, we'll probably have a pretty good idea. The way that you beat cover 3, which the Niners played last week, one advanced personnel guy said that looking at the Niners tape, when his team, he's starting early. His team plays the Niners, I think, in late October. But he said in his early studying is that from this game that he watched last week, The Niners playing the Lions. Hawkinson beat them on cover 3 beaters, slants, and over the middle. Hawkinson got wide open. Now, some of it's because they were so far up. The Niners played soft coverage in the second half by 28, 38-10. But nevertheless, there's certain things you can do against cover 3. There are always voids in cover 3. The Eagles have to find them. So I could certainly see Goddard having a big game this week. And also, the question, I know people are wondering about this, and we're not going to have the answer to this until the game starts, but typically coaches don't want to help linemen unless they have to. I don't see why the Eagles have to go into the game thinking Mailata can't at least hold his own against Nick Bosa. But we're not going to know until the game starts and see how the first couple series go. You hope that they don't have to have a 6 lineman or slide coverage, slide protection over with an extra tight end. That may happen. Goddard could be on that side. We'll know, but we'll know in the game. But I was blown away by what one personnel source said about Mailata. He said that, quote, no one got within 2 feet of Hurts on his side.
He's definitely an interesting story. Now, different look this week, 3-4-4-3. Does that present any differences here? No.
It's in nickel, teams are always playing 43 anyway. With rare exception. It's just on base downs. Yeah, they could go for 34. They're just got a better front. They got a better front than Niners. But if Kinlaw doesn't play for the second week in a row, that would be huge.
The stuff on my lot is interesting. To me, I described him, Adam, as like Joel Embiid. Like that level of here's a guy who had no experience, just said, hey, you look like a guy who could play basketball. You look like a guy who could play. Did you see Michael Buffer's tweet earlier this week?
No, did he have one?
He tweeted that why don't the Eagles use him as a running back? But I say
he was in rugby. Yeah.
Right. I say though, I would love to have seen them I would love to have seen the conversation of what position this guy might play. He had no experience. Who said? But I would have loved to have seen him with his speed, explosion, athleticism playing defensive tackle. Who is blocking him?
Oh, you know what, Mike? Actually, I have not talked about this. I totally forgot about it. So going back to 2018 on my work on Mailata, because I didn't know anything about him. I'll admit it. I didn't. Sure. I had no information on the guy. And I was just checking around it because I had heard that he did very well in it was called the Regional Combine. It was before the IMG workout with Jeff Stoutland. He did really well on it. I was like, all right, maybe someone signs him after the draft. I didn't know that he'd be drafted. Anyway, one of the things I heard is some teams saw him as a defensive tackle, not a left tackle. So that's the thing is the Eagles obviously had him scouted right. Give Howie Roseman and Jeff Stoutland and their front office credit, but not everyone saw him the same. That's the interesting part of that draft, which surprised me.
So interesting. I think this matchup is so appealing. The Eagles line against them. Let's look at a couple other things. The Eagles wide receivers. We know in years past they've had no playmakers. They had no help. I mean, Wentz essentially carried them to the playoffs 2 years ago. Yeah. How about now? I mean, I loved, Adam, what they did with Watkins the first 3 plays. They almost set it up like you're a wrestling guy. It's like the slow burn story of 3 passes to him. Now we have to account for you the rest of the day, and never went back to him. So when is that angle going to play itself out? Does he hit the home run ball? I love what the wide receivers bring and the way Sirianni used them.
Yeah, and the great thing is, as you were talking about, knowing the team. It's not like when you're facing the Raiders, Darren Waller's going to get most of their pass targets here. Smith got 8 targets. Rager got 6. Goddard got 5. Sanders got some checkdowns and was used in the pass game. You mentioned Watkins, the first 3 plays. Gainwell had 3 targets. And I think his role, we didn't even talk about it. Man, that floored me. When Boston Scott did not get used in offense, I did not see that at all. That's the thing about this staff is while we still don't know the rotations yet. There's certain things that could change. We only have 1 game. The preseason means absolutely nothing on offense and defense. So we only have the 1 game to analyze, and things could change here. There's some things that happened in that game. I think we would all admit that we didn't see coming. So I did love the game plan, the usage by the personnel on both sides of the football, the defensive guys standing up, using 10 defensive linemen, just really smart planning by the coaches.
Eagles offense obviously put up 32 last week. They gave up 6 on the defensive side of the ball. Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. Let's flip to the Eagles defense. Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance. We saw a little bit of Lance. Do you think more of Lance this week is in store or about the same?
I mean, I could see him doing a little bit more. The thing I'm concerned about is because he only had 4 plays and he had a touchdown. How do they deploy him? Like, do they do it? Okay, this week we'll go for a series and a half. I don't have that answer, but that's kind of what. Geez, I could go back to Jaws or Randall Cunningham in '86.
Right.
Randall would be the third down specialist. The game has evolved in 35 years, but I'm just fascinated, Mike, to see. I would expect them to do a little bit more this week. It's just so fascinating. I cannot wait. There's so many subplots to this game. There really are. Eagles run defense, which was awful to start the game, and then how do they handle Kyle Shanahan? Do they take shot plays? You mentioned their pass game was short area. Will they take some shots? They didn't take any last week because you talked about their speed. They're so fast at wide receiver. And Quez Watkins is their as I was told by a team source, is by far the best deep threat. And they got Rager could flat out fly, and so could Devontae Smith. But Watkins is a different gear. I'm just waiting to see what they do.
Yeah, and one of the interesting matchups will be the Eagles front, their rotation of guys. This is a much better offensive line than the Atlanta one. So can they get the same type of pressure? They blitzed only 10% of the time last week, Philadelphia did. Do they have to do more, implore more of that this week if they don't get the same pressure with that? So the Eagles' defensive line against their offensive line is going to be a very, I think, interesting subplot to how this game goes.
Oh, there's no doubt. When you look at this situation, Mike, there are just so many stories here. I cannot wait to see what the Niners do to take away those passing lanes, because they saw the Eagles what they were doing. They're throwing it short. And then Brandon Ayuk had a very quiet game for the Niners last week. He's their shot play guy. I got to think. I know Ayuk was nursing a hamstring injury. He's not even on the injury report, so there are no excuses here. There's so many things that could happen, and the weather's going to be great in the high 70s. We got rain today in Philly, but it's fine. So this could be a fun game, and there are a lot of things that could happen in this game. I expect the game, by the way, to be much closer than this last week's game.
Okay, so yesterday Ryan Paganetti was on with us. Now, he was on the staff last year.
Oh, was he?
A linebacker coach. Yes, very, very interesting and informative. And I told him, you guys didn't do a very good job against Kittle last year, and he kind of laughed. 15 catches on 15 targets.
It's an NFL record,
I asked him how would he defend Kittle this time around. He said third and obvious passing situations that he would put Slay on him. Do you think that's something you see happen? His reasoning, Adam, is he doesn't think that the rest of the 49er wideouts scare him enough that he needs Slay out there, that he can use others.
Well, remember now, the Eagles, based on what we heard in offseason and in training camp, what we saw in training camp, what we heard, and in week one, they're a zone defense. Now, you could play what's called a split zone. You could play half man, half zone. You could do that. You could have Slay travel with Kittle. You can do that. Look, last year, Slay struggled against a physical receiver in Metcalf. So it's you don't have a lot of choices here. Eric Wilson's a good cover guy. He's not a good run game guy. You could do that. You could try Singleton, who had a monster game. He had the pick 6 last year, his coming out party. Mailata was great against the Niners in that game. But getting back to the defense, there are a couple things you can do, but there are not a lot of them. So that's one of the subplots and how they do it. It's you know what is amazing about this game? It's week 2, and we're all jacked up for teams that are 1-0 because it's the NFC. It is a conference game. It's Eagles home opener with this new staff. And the Niners rolled so much on offense, and you see the Eagles scored 32, as you said. Niners scored over 40. This has got some fireworks to it, but often when we think a game's going to be high scoring, it's not. But I look forward to seeing what transpires.
Yeah, and real quick, what Paganetti said was also he mentioned Hargrave had the injury, and then he said he was really behind learning a new system because they asked him to do a lot of things that Pittsburgh didn't ask him to do. So he really anticipates a huge year from him, and we kind of saw that in week number 1.
Oh, he's my breakout player of the year for the Eagles. I picked him as our player of the game on our pregame show. I think he's going to be great. As one Eagles source said to me, there were practices where you just couldn't block him. He was just unstoppable. He's built low to the ground. He's not like a tall guy. He's in the neighborhood of 6'1" for a D tackle, but he gets so low and he's so explosive. He's just great, and he cares. He brings it. Fletcher Cox had a good game. He didn't show up the stat sheet, but I'm told he actually claps the pocket a bunch of times. He threw guys around. Their D-line was dominant. The other thing I didn't mention before we get out of here is the Niners' offensive line is way better than Atlanta, so they're facing a better foe here in Philly, which is why it should be a tight game.
All right, Adam Kaplan, your pick for Eagles 49ers will be?
I got it. I struggle with it a little bit, but I'm coming down to schematics and certain advantages the Eagles have. I'm going to pick them in a tight one.
All right, Eagles, tight one. I like it. We got a lot of tight ones today. Sal Pal, 27-24. He says a come-from-behind victory.
Really?
You got a tight Eagles win. Yeah, it's come from behind in South Philly. First
Who
time
will make
in
the play? Yeah, who's going to make the play to come back?
That'll be interesting. All right, Adam Kaplan. Don't forget, 10 o'clock, YouTube, Sunday. The whole gang will be there. Adam, Jeff, Cosell, Jason Avant, and an appearance from Quentin Michael as well, as they do it every Sunday, 10 a.m., the Inside the Birds pregame show with that man, Adam Kaplan. Happy Friday, Adam.
Same to you, my friend. Thank you.
All right, there he is, Adam Kaplan, here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And sitting next to me is my friend and, of course, former co-host on this very show. We're going to see if we can pop him into the stream, is one Pete Thompson. The PT is here live for Happy Hour Friday.
Oh, I see myself, but can you hear me?
I do.
I see me, and do you hear me?
I do hear
you.
you. I don't know if Josh
hear me
hears
now?
you. I don't
Josh,
know if
do
the
you hear
people
me?
in the world hear you.
Pete's a
but
little low.
I hear you. He
I'm
said Pete's a little low.
Wow,
Okay.
that's never something I've ever been accused of
So,
before.
Peter, you just heard a good conversation there with Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast, and he brought a lot of interesting
Remember
features.
break zone
So
for sure,
one
Sean.
of the things that really stood out to me that everybody has kind of brought up is the fact of the matter of the two lines last week were obviously check Eagles. I think that's going to be definitely debated this week.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the two lines played all the snaps, right? I mean, they were healthy. They made it through especially the offensive line, right? The offensive line made it through the game. That to me was a huge thing.
Now, you're a TV guy. The camera's over there.
I know, but I mean, I like talking to you. You know, I like to see your face. Usually we do these things. You're literally, hi, Mike, let me get your camera. Hi, Mike.
All right, Pete Thompson's here for the rest of the show, so we'll have some fun. Coming up on the other side, we've got the outside view. We're going to go to San Francisco, get some more insight on the 49ers. Then a Happy Hour Friday live segment with the PT.
Should be
KC Joyner. One thought. Every game is coming up at 5 o'clock tonight. Jeff Kerr, and then the PT and I will go back and forth with a little, what's that game called?
Rock'em Sock'em
Rock'em
Robots?
Sock'em
Yeah,
Robots.
sure.
And we'll give you our picks for the game as well. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle.
Local is your headsets. Return is the station. Rashawn on hold. You guys got 25 seconds. I just sent you that. Yes.
All right, we know that the Eagles are playing the Niners this weekend, but let's find out a little bit more about this week's opponent, the 1-0 San Francisco 49ers. Rashawn Haylock from the Believe in the Niners podcast on the Believe Podcast Network will join me and PT live from the FanDuel Sportsbook here at Bally's Atlantic City. We're right here on the boardwalk. You can stop on in, see the show live, come on out and see all the games. Phillies play the Mets tonight. You know,
Beat
the
Mets.
other San Francisco
Beat the
team, the
Mets.
Giants, the Phillies need some help from the Giants and Gabe Kapler tonight.
Isn't that strange? Excuse me, Mr. Coconut Oil. Could we get some help from you, please, sir?
Well, let's see what the 49ers bring today. But, you know, last year, PT, the Eagles went to, where do they play, like San Jose now or something like that?
You're talking about
The
where
49ers.
the training center
They
is?
don't play in San Francisco
No, it's,
anymore.
I mean, they call it the Bay Area, right?
Yeah, but
Isn't
they're
it
like in
Santa
San
Clara.
Jose.
Isn't
Santa
that
Clara,
the-
that's where
okay,
they are.
Right.
Levi Stadium. The Eagles went down there last year and won that game.
Yeah, like convincingly.
Nah, they needed that interception from Singleton
I
late. in the
know,
game.
but I mean, they look. Nobody thought they were going to be in it.
No. Well, the Eagles are awful because of injuries. The Niners were awful because of injuries, but a lot of injuries. Let's see how they play a factor. Rashawn Haylock is with us right now to give us some more insight on the 49ers with this week's Outside View. Rashawn, welcome to the show, man. How you doing? Well, this year, last year, the total disaster. We all want to forget about even the wins they had last year because they were painful to watch. This year, total different story. Let's talk about the 49ers and the injuries. What do we know about the injury situation for San Francisco? Because it seems like they're going back down the road that they had last year. All right, so the injuries there. Let's talk about the guys who are going to play. Let's go with Bosa because I think this matchup is really intriguing. Bosa, who obviously coming off the back from the injury, and then Jordan Mailata, who has only played, 11 NFL games, but it earned him an almost $80 million contract, a 4-year deal. He was dominant last week in the game against Atlanta, but that one has to be, if you want to sit there and say, watch an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman, this might be the matchup of the weekend. I would probably agree. Rashawn
makes me
Haylock is
giggle.
with us from the Believe in 49ers on the Believe Podcast Network. Him and Eric Davis do that podcast. Really good stuff. If you listen, if you're a local Niners fan, you guys are getting some really good stuff on there with Eric. He was on the show last year and really broke down some interesting things. One thing is the Eagles had their way. Atlanta's offensive line is horrible. San Francisco's not so bad. In fact, it's one of the better ones in football. So this will be a very interesting matchup. This is a very good Eagles defensive line, but that 49ers line significantly better than what they faced last week with Atlanta, correct?
Could you tell us, this is Pete Thompson, by the way, could you tell us a little bit about Elijah Mitchell? Because maybe not everybody knows his story, and obviously his NFL debut was a good one, 19 carries, 104 yards, and 1 touchdown. And, of course, Rashawn Haylock's with us since I get all the offense questions, or at least I get to start the offensive questions. I kind of went out of order by asking about the running back first, but then the story that everybody talks about is, Jimmy G versus Lance, and how much are they using each, and how is this going? What's the latest on which guy's going to be under center and when?
Rashawn, what's up with Ayuk in that whole story? I mean, last year he was the guy that everybody was talking about in the game against Philadelphia. He jumped over some poor sucker in the secondary, and that was all over the place. And now he couldn't get on the field last week. What's the story with that? Yeah. Last year, I don't know if you have talked about this or heard this number, but it's been pretty repeated in this area. George Kittle had 15 catches on 15 targets for 183 yards. The Eagles didn't really have an answer for him. Not that many do, but would you imagine that Kittle has another big role this week in the game against Philly? Rashawn Haylock from the Believe in 49ers podcast on the Believe Podcast Network. He and Eric Davis do a great job. If you're a local Niners fan or you just want to get a little bit more insight, go check that out on the Believe Podcast Network. Eagles-Niners this Sunday right here on 97.3 ESPN. Should be an interesting one. See if Philly can make it 2 in a row against the Niners. I actually think it's a little bit more than that. I think they have had some pretty good games against San Francisco recently. Two teams that have started 1-0. We'll see who can get to 2-0. Rashawn, we appreciate your time, man. Hey, man, right on the boardwalk. The beach is right here. We're in the Sportsbook. It's a happy hour Friday. You're invited, my man. All right, take care. This hour brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. Now, this is a perfect place for prop swappers because you can come here, you can put your future bet in and get that ticket, and then you post it at PropSwap. You know, people ask me, PropSwap, this sounds amazing. What do you do? Well, you come to Bally's FanDuel Sportsbook, you buy your futures ticket, and then you sell that ticket at PropSwap. And one of the tickets that everybody's buying like crazy, Luke Pergandy, who is the owner of PropSwap, one of the owners, that said Jalen Hurts for MVP.
Oh, my
Everyone's
gosh.
buying that ticket.
Well,
you buy it now.
Yeah, that's right, because you can get it at the best odds.
Right, so if you, like, at the beginning of the season, Peter, he was 8,000 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
It was plus 8,000. He's now plus 3,500.
Oof.
So
Yeah.
you buy that 8,000 ticket,
Yeah.
you post that thing, you could sell it. Someone wants that 8,000 ticket because if he has another big week now,
Yep.
those odds are going to go from 3,500 to 2,000 or something. Get that ticket now, post it because you might not even believe he's going to win it, but somebody across the country says, "I want that."
All it takes
ticket.
is one, right?
That's right.
The other beauty of it too.
And that's PropSwap.com and the PropSwap app. All right, when we come back, it is a true Happy Hour Friday. The PT is here live. Our Happy Hour Friday segment is up next here on the Sports Bash.
You got 1 minute, Mike. Here we go.
It is Happy Hour Friday here on the Sports Bash. It's brought to you this hour by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how. Go to PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. Now, many people think this is like the MGPT theme song here.
Yeah, it's Eminence Front by the Who. This is not a put-on. Come and join the party, though. That part definitely applies.
Yeah. Now, I said that on this Happy Hour Friday, there's the beer wall over there here at the beautiful FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City, which we are live till 6. So I had asked all week long, PT, Sal Pal, Adam Kaplan, different guests throughout the week. Give me something that happened in the game on Sunday that you find to be sustainable. In other words, something that you were surprised about, but you think can happen again.
My initial answer would be offensive line play. Healthy. What happens when an offensive line is out on the football field? Because there were times where Kelsey would get out and have one block and then 2 and 3. The Mailata hit has been played over and over again, like where he basically ran down the line and just.
Well, I don't know if you heard what Adam
out.
said, but he said, somebody in the personnel in the leagues, they were saying that Mailata didn't let someone within like 2 feet of Hurts. Like he was that dominant on Sunday that they couldn't get within 2 feet of Hurts coming from that side.
And I think my other favorite thing about George Mailata is sometimes guys will come up and say something about rugby and he's like Matumbo. No. I'm not the rugby player anymore. Like let's just drop that and move on and call me an offensive lineman because that's what he is.
Well, I was saying, like, did you see the Michael Buffer tweet?
Yes.
So he puts out that I don't know why, they don't use this guy as like a running back, like Fridge Perry, basically, is what he said.
Right.
So to which I said to Adam, I said, I mean,
that's not completely out of left field since the rugby, the way you play. And remember, of course, the national media is going to pick up that during the football game, they had to do the melt and go back and show, him and his rugby days and how many times people struggled to bring him down.
Well, I mean, he's just a massive man.
Like, you know what it's like? It's like an adult playing with kids, and like 4 or 5 kids are hanging off the adult. You know?
Don't touch me.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize there was a barrier here.
No, but you're right. I mean, like, he's 6'8", 385 pounds, but he can run and he's an athlete. And that's why I said to Adam, I said, I think I would have played him at defensive tackle. Who the hell's blocking him?
Right.
The explosion and burst that he has getting off the line, you're not blocking. It's 6'8". Dude, he would take the center and guard like 2 stuffed dolls and just push them back. Like, I would like to see you're going to make Shohei Ohtani.
You're going to make him a two-way player
right,
now?
Exactly. He's Shohei Ohtani. He can play both. Like on third down and short, I'd put him in at defensive. And I'm not joking. I'm not saying this as a joke. I think he could play defensive tackle and wreck bleep up.
I think he could too, but then you're putting him out for more snaps, thereby increasing the likelihood that he might get hurt or dinged up.
When these teams put J.J. Watt in the backfield or Fridge Perry,
or a play,
I'm saying on third down and goal,
like
goal line situation, I'm putting him in the middle, right over the nose guard, and saying, you try to block a 6'8", 385-pound man who has explosion.
He also did his job so well that Kenneth Gainwell went in untouched, for example. I think that it's kudos to Jeff Stoutland and the vision that they saw of, all right, well, if anybody can make this guy into an offensive lineman, Coach Stoutland can and has, and then of course so much so that they paid him for it. And boy, I'll tell you, when that deal came out and there were some people that were questioning, like, I can't believe he got all that money. I don't think anybody's questioning that now.
Well, I know somebody who keeps questioning a buddy of ours, and he keeps saying, I want to see him again.
A Sunday show with me?
No. Does Billy not like the deal?
No, I thought he did like the deal. That's why I was surprised what you were
going. A mutual friend of ours who put a Facebook post out and linked us to it and said, boy, Howie Roseman strikes again. I'm thinking, man, he made a tremendous deal. How could you not like? And it's like when the guy plays well, it's like we're trying to find reasons to say, well, just wait until that. Well, just wait until the guy has passed every test. He has dominated in every way possible. Now he's got Bosa this week. This is a big test for him.
It is.
If he dominates in a game like this against this player, Then what? What does he have to do next?
Right. And what are you looking for when you say dominates Bosa? To me, I'm saying just neutralizes him or lessens the impact.
Let me tell you.
Bosa's still maybe going to get a play here and there, right? But you're not looking. I mean, domination would really put him on the national stage in a hurry.
Well, let me tell you something,
just
Peter.
lessens the impact of him.
When Jason Peters was at his best, you went into a game saying,
"Oh yeah,
you got Jason Peters. You're
right.
Whoever
you're covered on that side,
right? Whoever your defensive end is, don't worry. If you watch it, he suffocates the guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's so big.
Mm-hmm.
There was a video of him from last year. He's got his guy blocked one-on-one. He then lets his arm off and just takes the guy that is free and pushes him, and the guy falls over.
Yeah.
He's a massive human being. I mean, look, it's so weird to say you're excited about an offensive lineman.
Right. But, I mean, that was one of my – and that's why when you asked me, like, the one thing, if I took away from that first game, what was it that excited me? And I can't remember a time, and maybe it's because the line was so injured last year and so poor, but I can't remember a time where I was, like, geeking out over downfield blocks from our line because it wasn't just, oh, that's a good seal block. It was – they are kicking the bleep out of those guys.
Well, that's
5, 10, 12 yards down the field.
Pete, that's almost unfair, though. That Lions team, I mean, that Falcons team is pretty bad.
I agree. But
I
based
agree.
on what we saw last year and how bad, no disrespect to the Driscolls and Herbigs of the world, but it sure was nice to see the people that are supposed to be out there doing what they're doing. I mean, and listen, I'm not ready to put the lineup on the Mount Rushmore of lines, for God's sakes. There was a couple penalties, right? Didn't Lane Johnson have a couple penalties in there?
The penalties were unacceptable.
Right? I didn't understand that.
Grayson's grades, I thought aptly gave them a B,
Mm-hmm.
not for their play, but because of the penalties.
Right. You have to sort of take a point away because, look, you got to play disciplined as well. You can't be out there hurting your team.
Yeah, I would guess, Devonta Smith, he's becoming very likable. Hey, I sit in my house. I don't even leave.
Mm-hmm.
This team, oddly, how about the whole Kelsey with the blonde hair? They asked him what happened. He said,
totally.
I lost the bet.
Yep, lost the bet.
I told Ertz he wouldn't be on the team.
Couldn't be happier to lose that
How
bet.
funny, though, is it Ertz said, I'll be here.
Yeah, he kind of knew maybe.
Weird.
Did he just want to take Kelsey's money that much?
Now, coming up on the other side, it's one thought on every game. Plus, we'll dig a little deeper in the key matchups between the Eagles and the Niners. Now, Casey
30.
Joyner with The Athletic now. He's also writing a piece 2 times a week for the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Which is amazing. I got to
20
see him in
seconds.
the paper. I love it.
And he's with us here every Monday and Friday with one thought on every Week 2 NFL game. It's coming up next. One thought
10 seconds.
every game up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN Live
5.
at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City.
Saturday morning in the locker room with Billy Schwein, Scott McKay and I will reflect on the Eagles' Game 1 victory over the Falcons and look at the Birds' next opponent, the 49ers. The Sportsbook consigliere Dave Sharapan calls in from Vegas with his 6-pack of picks, and a lucky listener will win an Eagles prize package courtesy of Pro Image Sports and Fan Treasures. Tune in for the details. It's the locker room with Billy Schwein, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon.
1 minute, guys.
All right, final hour of the show live today. We are at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. Come on up here, make all your wagers for the weekend here at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. KC Joyner with us right now for one thought on every game. Look who I found there, KC Joyner, walking around the casino.
Hey,
Pete Thompson.
Casey, great
Pete
to see you,
Thompson
buddy.
for
Yes,
one
sir.
thought on every game. There's KC Joyner. He's Pete Thompson. I'm Mike Gill. Happy Friday, Casey.
Happy Friday, Pete. I've been seeing you on Facebook. It is great to see you live.
Yes, sir. Great to see you live as well. I don't know that I was more excited than a couple weeks ago when I picked up my morning paper and there you were in my hard copy of my paper. I was like, you go, girl. You go, Case. You go, man. I love it.
KC Joyner, of course, The Athletic. You can read all of his stuff in The Athletic this season, and he is writing a column this year for the Philadelphia Inquirer as well. So, KC Joyner, let's take a quick glance back to the Eagles and the Falcons. What stood out about what Philadelphia was able to do that maybe they could utilize this week?
I know that from the owner on down, they want to throw the football. And every year we have the same conversation that they ought to run the football more. Last year, they led the league in my good blocking rate metric that measures how often an offense gives its ball carriers quality run blocking. And they were at, I think it was 45% was what they had last year. In game one this year against the Falcons, they had a good blocking rate of 63.3%.
Wow.
If you can run the ball that well, you should keep doing it until somebody figures out how to stop you. They weren't as good on the defensive side of the ball, but on the offensive side of the ball, Philadelphia needs to say, hey, we know we can do all these things that we're passing, but we ought to mix in a little more running than we are right now because they have a fantastic run blocking offensive line.
All right. Did they have a fantastic offensive line blocking-wise because they played Atlanta? How does that change with San Francisco?
I think that it was partly because they played Atlanta, but Atlanta's run defense, I have a matchup points grading system that measures matchups on a 1 to 100 scale where 100 is most favorable. Atlanta came into the game with a 51. So, I mean, it wasn't like I had them graded as a bad run defense. They did it against a solid run defense. As far as can they do it against San Francisco tends to disrupt things, but just like the Eagles were in previous years, at being as disruptive as they are, if you get good blocking against them, you're going to tend to get some big gainers against them. So I don't think they need to rely heavily on the ground game. They were so pass heavy last week and it worked and it was a great game plan. I just think they're going to need to and want to mix in more of that ground game because they've got the makings of their 5 guys up front. They stay healthy. This could be the best run blocking line in the league. And I just don't like to see them scaling it back because analytics tells them to throw the ball a little bit more.
Yeah, it should be interesting, guys, when you look at that Eagles. They got pressure on Matt Ryan last week. Let's flip it to that side. The Falcon offensive line, not very good. Different matchup this week with the San Francisco 49ers, though.
Yeah, different. San Francisco also, they're going to be, when they throw, it's vertical. They have that old thing of we're going to run the ball, and they may throw short passes, screen passes. They're going to mix those things in there as well. But when they throw, they want to go vertical. They're not as good at usually when you pick an offensive line, what they could do on what they don't do well. Sometimes they do both things well. San Francisco, I mentioned they struggled against a run blocking last week, only had a 24% good blocking rate on the ground against Detroit. I saw some weaknesses in their pass blocking too that I think could be exploited. So if I'm San Francisco, be very careful. I'm going to have to leave 6 extra guys in to pass rush or to pass block because I think the Eagles pass rush could be fairly disruptive in this contest.
Okay, one area real quick on that number is the fact that George Kittle, the Eagles had a lot of problems with last year. 15 catches, 15 targets. We brought that number up a lot. They did a good job with Ridley and Pitts last week. So what can you take from that and how they could do that against Samuel and Kittle this week?
They decided that they're going to put a cornerback on Pitts a lot of the time. They didn't just leave it up to the safeties to take care of it. They said, we're going to actually treat him like a receiver. It's tougher to do that against Kittle because if you go and say, okay, we're going to try and put a cornerback up against Kittle, he'll block you very, very, very effectively. And Pitts is he's a bigger guy, but blocking's not what he does really well. So I would worry about that because San Francisco could say if they see you go light against them, that, hey, we're going to go ahead and ground and pound. But having said that, if you need to take him out of the passing game, you got to worry about Samuel too, obviously, and Ayuk if he decides to play up to his talent level. But if I'm them, I'm more worried about his pass blocking than I am his run blocking because if they want to run the ball, fine, you're playing right into what the Eagles should want them to do.
Casey, the Niners also use a position that isn't always featured or prominent in the NFL anymore, and that's a fullback in Kyle Juszczyk. Well, what does he bring to the table?
He brings a big problem to the table because last week, as I mentioned in my Philadelphia Inquirer article, the Eagles were playing more two-gapping technique versus one. Under Jim Schwartz, they played one-gapping technique is where you attack one side of an offensive lineman, and you're wanting to get up the field to be disruptive. And it worked really well for the Eagles, but they want now to go to a more two-gap system, which means the linemen are going to take on the offensive linemen, and they're going to try to buy their linebackers time to get to the ball. They're trying to occupy the offensive linemen, not beat them, but just occupy them. Beat them when the running back comes to, but you're not trying to get up the field. The thing is, the linebackers have to read and react quickly, and this was their first game in this new setup, and they weren't as fast to read and react as they should be. If you're not fast to read and react, and you've got Kyle Juszczyk blocking it, you're going to have some big problems. So those linebackers need to step up and start reading this stuff more quickly because the linemen are buying them time. They just aren't taking advantage of it.
Talking with Casey Joyner here. Of course, you can read his stuff in The Athletic, the Philadelphia Inquirer, the Eagles, and the 49ers. We're taking a look at some of the matchups to watch here. I want to get your thoughts on the Eagles wide receiving core. Very young, but they played a big role in the game. Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins even had a big role early in the game, and how they match up against, Verrett's out and how the secondary looks. It looks like if Nick Sirianni has his way, he has some room to roam in that secondary this week.
That may be a reason that they want to go to the passing game. In fact, last week, per the NFL game book, NFL's official game book, Jalen Hurts only threw one vertical pass last week, one deep pass. All the rest were short. And when you're 22 for 28 on 168 yards on your short aerials, I just think you're going to be, you need to be able to throw the ball short and you need to be able to dig a dunk. And I think the 49ers do have those question marks in their secondary, so I think they will want to do that. But I think you also want to go vertical against these guys. So I'd like to see more verticality out of the game. A little too much dinking and dunking for my taste last week. So I'd like to see Eagles do more of that. But having said that, if the dink and dunking and the running game is working, you don't have to go vertical unless you want to. But I'd still love to see them have Smith try to tear the top off of defense because we saw what he could do on, I would say, shorter passes. We haven't seen him try to tear the top off the defense. I'd like to see him test the secondary because I think the 49ers secondary is solid, but I think he could be tested.
So Smith is your vertical guy, or is there somebody else that you think that would step up and be the vertical fly guy or go guy?
I'd like to see him. I mean, Quez is the obvious target for vertical passes. I'd like to see them try Smith on that just because, and I know he's a run after the catch sort of guy. I just think that he's got the kind of speed that could get past him. By the way, the 49ers have a strong safety, Jaquiski Tart. He's their strong safety. I've got him rated as green rated and covering tight ends. And I think he'll also be a liability in coverage if they move him back. A lot of times they're going to have him be a box safety, but I think if you could get them to switch back and get him out of the box and have him start to play deep, you could go at him that way. So I think that's another element that the Eagles could go after in a vertical passing game.
With Verrett out, is there an exploitation spot right there that's obviously where you're going to go right away? Sometimes you do that during the game. Sometimes you game plan for that ahead of time.
They have a guy named, I hope I'm pronouncing this name right, Diamador Lenoir is a cornerback who looks like he's replacing Verrett at right corner, who replaced him in the lineup last week. He would likely go up against Jalen Reagor, so I'd like to test that element of their secondary out. Lenoir did solid last week as far as when he was targeted, so I don't know that he's a coverage liability, but if I'm the Eagles, I want to find out.
All right, Casey Joyner will get the matchup in this game. Where is that decisive matchup between Philadelphia and San Francisco? Where is this one where somebody's far superior when they match up against the other side?
If I'm basing it on last week, it's the Eagles' run defense versus the 49ers' run offense. If the 49ers play to where they're capable of playing, if they block to where they're capable of blocking, and the Eagles' run defense does not play better than they did last week, and they've got to go with the two gap. And if that's what your system's going to be, you can't just give up on it after 1 week. But if they don't play better in that environment and San Francisco gets its run blocking where it needs to be, that's the matchup that will decide this contest. So they either have to step up better on that side of the ball or hope San Francisco has some of its same struggles, because if they don't, that's going to be a mismatch for San Francisco.
They gave up 31 last week to Detroit, that defense did, so we'll see that matchup. And, of course, we will get Casey's pick on that game coming up in just a little bit. But first, let's take a look and get one thought on every Week 2 NFL game. We'll take a look at the schedule this week and get Casey's one thought on every game. Let's start in Chicago, where the Bears host Cincinnati. Andy Dalton will face his former team. Cincinnati obviously got the win in overtime last week, and the Bears have a lot of quarterback questions.
They do. Problem for Chicago, the biggest problem is their defense. They've been a dominant platoon on that side of the ball for years. That's not the case anymore. I mentioned that matchup points total. They give Cincinnati 82 passing matchup points. It's a mismatch for Cincinnati in that area. By the way, Jamar Chase, second most receiving yards by a Bengals rookie receiver in his first game in team history. So that's pretty big. You add that to Burrow. You add that to how well Mixon played, and Chicago's offense just isn't going to be able to keep up. So I get Cincinnati.
All right, Cleveland was maybe the most impressive loser last week. Them and the Cowboys, but this week they're a big home favorite as they take on a team that won last week, surprisingly, the Texans.
Yeah, the Texans. I mean, I give Houston coach David Culley credit. He's got a clear idea of what he wants out of his team, and that's part of the reason that they were able to dominate Jacksonville. But they were pretty even in talent last week. And this week, they're not going to be that well and good in terms of talent. The Texans have a terrible run defense. 90 matchup points is what the Browns are going to have. 90 rush defense matchup points. You give that to Chubb and Hunt and the Browns' superb offensive line. Even if the Browns might be missing a starter, might be playing a third string at left tackle, I still think they've got enough to win.
All right, Indianapolis is at home. They looked okay up and down last week for Carson Wentz, I guess. Got sacked a lot, hit a lot. The Los Angeles, a lot of people like them on Monday night, but they're going to go on the road this week and face the Colts. But the Colts can't go to 0-2, can they?
They can, because they are a banged-up team. Paris Campbell is listed as questionable today. Michael Pittman listed as questionable today. Xavier Rhodes, their top-notch corner, is out. Darius Leonard missed the Wednesday and Thursday practices with an ankle injury / illness, non-COVID illness. I just looking at this. They're on a third-string left tackle on that team. We all know what Carson Wentz can do if he's off his game. I just keep looking at the way the Rams played in Week 1, and I got the Rams winning this one pretty handily.
And Casey, in AFC East battle, you've got Buffalo at Miami. Of course, Buffalo, Josh Allen, people think about that with the Buffalo Bills, and then Miami at home. What's your one thought out of that AFC East clash?
The Bills won 5 straight. They beat Miami 56-26 late last year, Week 17. Miami's got great defensive mind in Brian Flores and got plenty of talent outside of the ball. They did not fare as well against the Patriots as it might seem, though. The Patriots actually scored on 50% of their drives, which is not a good sign because Buffalo has a lot better offense than the Patriots. So I'm taking Allen and Diggs, and I think they're going to win this game. It'd be close, but I'm taking it by just a small margin in that contest.
And, of course, that was the first place Miami Dolphins. New England is on the road. The Patriots are playing. And what's your thought about the Patriots matchup this week against New York?
Jets didn't look so good in the first half. In the second half, I mean, they have obviously a rookie quarterback, and he's on the receiving core beset with injuries. They're on the road, so a tough matchup. But then the second half, he leads in the 14 points, so that's a good sign. But he's going to get his initiation to a Bill Belichick defense. A rookie quarterback against the Bill Belichick defense, I think he's going to have to call Sam Darnold to ask him about seeing Ghost again. So I'm going to take New England to this one.
Casey Joyner, one thought every game. Let's go to Pittsburgh. They had maybe one of the more impressive wins of the week. They went to Buffalo. Their defense looked outstanding. But Vegas, they got an overtime win as well. But can they travel to Pittsburgh and go to 2-0?
You know, I'm a big Pittsburgh guy here, and I like their matchup there. But I mean, I'm looking at Vegas, and they've got the terrible run defense. They're going to be missing Josh Jacobs, so Kenyon Drake is going to be in their backfield. They may try and run the ball or pass the ball up. They're going to be down multiple offensive linemen. The Steelers are going to want to run the ball with Najee Harris. They're not going to give up on the run after one game. I just keep looking at all this and thinking Derek Carr against that Steelers pass rush. I don't like it at all for the Raiders. Plus, it's an early East Coast kickoff for them, so I got Pittsburgh in this one.
One thought every game, New Orleans, they looked maybe the most impressive of everyone. 38-3 winner against the Packers last week. Now, Carolina, who kind of struggled their way through but got a win against the Jets, but they're at home. Can they make it? Can the Carolina Panthers make it 2 in a row by beating off a division foe?
Hey, the Panthers saw the difference that Christian McCaffrey makes. They didn't have much last year for just one game. Last week, they got 381 net offensive yards. They only did that 4 times last year. So they're showing you what he means to their offense. New Orleans, by the way, big run team, 24-12 run to pass ratio by the 2-minute warning of the first half, even though they were only up 10-0. This is a run team. I'll tell you, they'll change it up this week, though. Carolina's got a guy in their secondary named Dante Jackson. He's terrible in coverage, had an awful leak last week, and I think that they're going to throw a lot of passes to Marquez Callaway because of that, or a lot more than they did last week. So it's going to be a double two-fisted approach for New Orleans this week, so I got them winning this one.
Casey, Arizona puts up 38 points last week, and now they're home against the Vikings. How many can they put up this week?
Well, think about it. The Vikings give up 149 yards on the ground. Mentioned Chase earlier. They allowed him to nearly set a Bengals team record, a team for rookie receiving yards. Arizona's got all the pluses that they have on offense. Plus, Minnesota's going to be missing two defensive starters. One of their starting defensive linemen is out. One of their linebackers is definitely out. They may have a second linebacker out. So they might be playing 3 backup players in their front 7 going against Arizona. And Arizona can run the ball and will run the ball, but they can also go vertical. Mike Zimmer's going to be pulling his hair out because this is just not the kind of football he wants to play. I think Minnesota loses this week.
Oh, nobody wants to go 0-2. Man, the Buccaneers have to be licking their chops. They're home again. They've had a long break from that first game that they played against Dallas, and here comes Atlanta. It's the health spa. Have fun.
It is. I mean, think about Bucs defense, though. They give up 30 first downs and 4 to 50 yards to the Cowboys, and they would have given up more than 29 points if Greg Zuerlein would have been on his game. But, I mean, the Falcons' offense, they're just awful. They get the 3rd lowest offensive points expected in week 1, behind only the Titans and the Packers. Their defense was awful. I mentioned they gave up a 63.3% good blocking rate. Tampa will want to run the ball more this week than they did last week, but I'm not seeing very many pass to victory for Atlanta this one, so Tampa wins this handily.
All right, Dallas is heading to L.A. to take on the Chargers. Chargers came across the country and beat Washington. Do they make it 2 in a row in the NFC East?
Really not certain about that because, I mean, the Chargers, they put up 334 net passing yards last week, though. I got to give them credit. They had an early kickoff East Coast road matchup against a tough Washington defense, and they didn't throw a single pass to Austin Eckler. Not that he didn't make a catch. They didn't target him one time. Now they get to host a Dallas defense that ranked next to last in pass pressure in week 1. They lost defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence to a foot injury, so they're going to be even worse than they were. I think the Cowboys can turn this into a shootout contest, but we talked many times over the years that shootouts are 50-50 prop, even for the best offenses in the league. The Chargers' defense is a lot better in Dallas, so I'm going to take Los Angeles in this one.
One thought every game, Tennessee on the road. They got to go to Seattle after losing at home last week. They look terrible. Can Tennessee be 0-2? They're on the road in Seattle. That doesn't sound like a recipe for a 1-1 situation here.
It is a terrible situation for them because, Seattle's going to have the 12s going crazy up there. Pete Carroll decided we're going to run the ball more this year. He was at a 27-23 run-to-pass ratio, but Russell Wilson threw a ton of vertical passes that tore that defense apart. The Titans look to be on the verge of an early season collapse. New offensive coordinator Todd Downing, he didn't do any play action hardly at all compared to last year. I think it was like a 35% rate last year and like 15% rate in week 1. So he's not doing any kind of – he doesn't have Arthur Smith's play calling touch. They've got 3 coverage liabilities in secondary to begin with. They might not have the starting strong safety. So I got Seattle pretty handling this one.
All right, one thought every game. Kansas City, Baltimore, Sunday night. Conversely, Baltimore, if they lose, they'll be 0-2. This is a little bit different task taking on Kansas City. We know Baltimore has had all sorts of problems with the Chiefs here. Now, they get them at home, but does that matter in this one?
I don't think it does, because remember, they already lost their top 3 running backs. They lost their best cornerback. Their starting left guard got carted off the field last Monday night, and it looks like that Ronnie Stanley, their starting left tackle, he might miss this matchup. The Ravens couldn't even slow the mediocre Raiders passing attack. The Raiders passing attack. But this is one of the worst passing attacks in the league. Vegas racked up 409 passing yards, and they couldn't do anything against Darren Waller. You know, Darren Waller was targeted 19 times in that contest. That is just an insane number. I don't think that the Ravens have what it takes, in part because of where they're playing, in part because of their injuries. So I think Kansas City not going to win heavily, but I think they're going to win because it's a Baltimore contest. It was in Kansas City. I think it's going to be a big win for Kansas City, but I still think they'll have enough to win.
Okay, that's one thought on every game from Casey Joyner. He'll be back on Monday to give us thoughts on the Monday night football game and then to recap all of the week 2 action here. So before we let him run, let's get a couple more thoughts on Philadelphia and San Francisco and kind of clue us in here, Casey. Last week, you liked the Falcons. I do remember that. This week, San Francisco. Now, they're at the Greenbrier in West Virginia, so they don't have to travel all the way across the country again, but they got to come to Philly. Hasn't been fans in Philly, real fans, for 20 months. So the Eagles fans are a little excited after a win against the Falcons. But is that enough to hold off this 49ers team, who's pretty banged up?
Yeah, they are. And I did pick Atlanta last week. I thought it was going to be a very close contest. Didn't think Atlanta was as bad as they are. They've got a lot of adjustments to make. And Sirianni, give him credit. He knows what he has on offense, and he's being able to utilize all of the talent that he has. I think that he will be able to run the ball more. And I think he'll incorporate it into his contest. And I do think that as good as the front four played for Philadelphia, as good as they played, those linebackers will be able to read and react better. I think that's one of the easiest, I would say an easy thing to correct, but I think it's something that you can get up to speed fairly quickly on. I like that. I don't like what some of the things that San Francisco got in their offense. They did not run blocking well. If they can't run block well, they don't win. So I'm actually picking Philadelphia to win this one, heads up.
How about that there, PT?
Okay, well, let's hope those words are prophetic.
Now, I know, Casey, we've been talking a lot about this. You mentioned Sirianni and the receivers. You know, you're a wrestling guy. I mentioned this earlier where I love the way they used Watkins. It felt like a slow burn wrestling story where they used him for the first 3 passes and then never went back to him. So it's like you had to account for him all game. Like they used this guy 3 plays in a row and then never went back to him. So I'm waiting because you talked about Watkins being the deep guy. He's a 4.2 40 guy. Hitting a seam pass this week, just zipping by everybody. That's the play I think happens.
If they go one high, if they play that one safety back, mind you, Jimmy Ward's a good free safety, so it's going to be tough to get him out of position. I think they're going to have to be in a situation where maybe they run all verts and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and throw 4 people deep and then see if we can get a matchup that we like or see if they're playing 3 deep and things. But if you got Watkins on one side and you got Smith on the other side and you've got them running all verts, and mind you, Raker wouldn't be terrible on that either, and you've got a number of different players you can get going downfield, I think it'd be a good thing to do. I just don't know if they're going to trust Hurts to do it, but I think if they're going to try and do it, this is a matchup because when you've got one safety who's bad, that's a great time to run all verts.
And possibly a big day for Goddard and Ertz, too. I think the linebackers can be had in this one. Should be fun. Philly, San Francisco, right here on 97.3 ESPN. The coverage with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick starts at noon with the Eagles Radio Network, and Merrill and Mike have the call. Kickoff at 1. Casey Joyner's back on Monday. Thanks, Casey. Have a great weekend, man.
Appreciate it, guys.
And Casey Joyner from The Athletic and the Philadelphia Inquirer here on the Sports Bash is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook Inside Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. I am Mike Gill. That's Pete Thompson.
Yes, sir.
This
I love
is
Casey Joyner, man.
Happy Hour Friday here on the Sports Bash, and it's been a fun day. You know what I've noticed today here in the
FanDuel
Sportsbook?
Yeah.
There's a lot of women that come in here and bet.
I know.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I have noticed that.
So it's like they just randomly will walk in, place a bet, and leave.
Come in, you know, you go to the kiosk, you go to the window. I mean, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Too. I have to admit, this is my first trip in here. So I'm
You're not a big better.
no, I tend to bet on myself. You want to play Golden Tee?
Have you and Schweimer had your golf betting yet?
No, but that's coming. It's going to be a big extravaganza. I'm glad you brought that up. Well, Tom T. to Green. Hello, Tommy Green. He's going to be
a part of it?
He's going to be a part of it. We're hoping that Mickey Morandini might be a
wow,
part
that's
of it.
going to be a big shindig.
We're getting a whole bunch of people that are some of Billy's greatest hits.
Hey, by the way, speaking of which, the LPGA Pro-Am is coming up. And starting Monday, PT, people listening to the show can register for a chance to play golf with me and you and an LPGA Pro.
Great. Must have mentioned that earlier because I hadn't gotten here yet. And I got a text from someone who said, how can I sign up? I want to play with you and Gill. And I was like, well, I'm not there yet, but I'll see him later. And then I just directed them to the website. I thought that was an educated guess.
Well, we will give you the details on how you can win an opportunity to play golf with PT, myself, and an LPGA Pro. You could be our fourth member of our
keep in mind, we're terrible. We freely admit that. Neither of us are good.
I'm really bad.
Yeah, and I'm slightly better than you.
That's a good, nice way to put it. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, brought to you by East Coast Roofing, Siding, and Windows, serving all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up. Visit them online at eastcoastroofing.com. When we come back, 97.3 ESPN.com's Jeff Kerr, who covers the Eagles, will join us in some NFL. We'll get his thoughts on the NFC East game from last night. What did that mean? Which are the Giants out of this thing? We'll talk to him about that game and the Eagles and the Niners. We'll get his pick on that and more here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Kerr's on hold.
Jeff Kerr's appearance on the Sports Bash is brought to you by the expert solar team of New Jersey, EMT Solar and Roofing and Solar Guardians. Start your solar journey today by learning more and visit espnsolar.com. Mike Gill, Pete Thompson is with me live today. We are at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City, and joining us live right now to talk a little bit more about this NFC East weekend, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, covers the NFL, and he is with us now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Jeff Kerr, what's up, my man? How about that?
Oh, there's not much that's going to beat the FanDuel
All
Sportsbook,
right.
but boy, that was pretty good, Jeff.
All right. I got a wedding to go to tomorrow. Not quite the same as the bachelor party, but all right. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about last night's that was a back and forth wild one there. But what did we find out about the Giants and the Washington football team in that game last night? Yeah, and I know the Giants, I thought for the most part that I don't want to say they had a great performance off the offensive line, but I definitely was better than I anticipated. I thought that was going to be a total mismatch up front, didn't you? Washington football team, I thought disappointing defensively, but they did put up 30 points last night. I mean, is this a team that's better offensively than maybe we give them credit for? I don't know that Jeff's hearing me. Jeff, can you hear me?
Checking. Hold on.
All right, we'll try to check with Jeff Kerr, who obviously is joining us via the phone today here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Mike Gill, Pete Thompson, we're live if we can get Jeff back on. If not, PT, that's what I left was like, Washington's a little better offensively than I thought anyway.
Yeah, and I think that because Fitzmagic went down and because, there wasn't a complete
Jeff is
picture
back.
coming out of week one, that there were some question marks. But, I thought Heineke, kind of earned the job last night with what he did.
Yeah, I know, Jeff, we were just asking you, is Washington a little better offensively? I mean, I guess Heineke, we didn't know enough about him, but are they better offensively than maybe we gave him credit for? Yeah. All right, let's get a couple thoughts on the Eagles and Niners this weekend. And, how much do you think the injuries of the 49ers are going to play a role in this game?
Jeff, was Kenny Gainwell the X factor or the surprise for you coming out of that Eagles-Falcons game? Because I know there were a lot of people that were like, whoa, look at this guy. Right. Yeah, and not for nothing, the depth chart still lists Boston Scott as number 2 and Kenny Gainwell as number 3. I mean, that's the other thing you sit there and ask was that a scheme thing, like the Falcons are that bad, or was that something that they were just trying to pull the old surprise card out and say, okay, we showed you nothing in preseason, but here we go. And you were talking a minute ago about some of the injuries. We know about Verrett, and you talked about Greenlaw being nicked up at the will linebacker position. But my question is, do you think this is the week then that we actually see a deep vertical ball or two? Because last week I thought they really kind of tailored it to Jalen Hurts' specialty, right? I mean, he didn't really have to, chuck one, go for that Hail Mary all the way down the field, the deep ball, the long pass, whatever you want to call it, the home run, the ba-boom, right? Is this the week that you see that? Yep.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. The matchup I'm looking forward to, it's usually a skill position, but I want to see Mailata against Bosa. Handicap that one. Jeff Kerr, all right. We got Eagles and Niners. We've reached that point of the week where we are getting the picks. So give us your thoughts on how this game kind of goes. What's the pick for Eagles and Niners? All right, we'll see it all unfold right here on 97.3 ESPN. The coverage starts at noon on the Eagles Radio Network with Merrill and Mike on the call at 1 o'clock. All right, Jeff Kerr, enjoy the bachelor party, man.
There you go. Fairways and greens. Go get them.
Well, good luck. And Jeff Kerr, of course, here on the Sports. Jeff Kerr's appearance on the Sports Desk is brought to you by the expert solar team of New Jersey, EMT Solar and Roofing and Solar Guardians. Start your solar journey today. Learn more by visiting ESPNSolar.com. All right, Jeff Kerr, he likes the Niners to win in a close one. Adam Kaplan likes the Eagles in a close one. Sal Pal likes the Eagles 27-24, but coming up, the PT and I will give our picks for the game and kind of hash out the weekend and all that good stuff. It's coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
30.
All right, we'll give our thoughts of the day before we get on out of here. PT, turn off your microphone or turn off your sound. Thank you very much.
I forgot. Wait, there was a reason for that. It's so I could say Diamadori Lenore. Diamadori Lenore.
There you go.
Number 38.
Okay.
Diamadori Lenore.
Well, how will Adamadori Malore?
Barakata Noid Alahadu, Diamadori Lenore. How will he factor into the game? No, I just thought it was cool that, this is why these Friday shows are so great. Football Friday shows. You have Casey Joyner on, football scientist, who's going to tell us about matchups to key in on, and he picked that guy. And then Jeff Kerr sort of, they don't talk to each other. Jeff's on his way to a bachelor party. He says, well, I'm not 100% out to say his name, but I did talk about it with Verrett out. They're both cycling in on that same guy. So, I mean, do you want my prediction now? Is that
yeah, let's zone it in there.
Oh,
PK.
Sorry about that. I when I was listening to Sal Pal earlier, honest to God, you would think that he and I were in the same room together because I think he was only a point different than me. I'm going Eagles 28, Niners 24. I think the Eagles improved to 2-0. I think there's 68,000 reasons that they are going to win this game.
Oh, wow. How about that?
Home cooking's going to push them over the top.
There's a couple of things that factor in this game for me, Peter. The offensive line against the defensive line, I thought last week was a clear advantage to Philadelphia. I don't think it's as clear advantage this time around, but I still think the Eagles' offensive line is a slight edge. Slight edge, I said.
Okay.
That being said, I think the secondary of the Niners is weaker.
Right.
I think the linebackers for the Niners can be a factor in this game. The injuries, I think, are a factor.
Right. Greenlaw linebackers banged up for the Niners. Yeah.
Right. On the defensive side of the ball, I think the offensive line of the Niners is a big factor. I think that they will neutralize the Eagles' pass rush in this game. So that concerns me.
Okay.
What also concerns me is Kittle against the linebackers. But that being said, I don't see the big play. I thought Sal Pal brought up the big play, and that the Eagles have been doing a good job, or he thinks that John
talked about the scheme too for being a big reason of that, right?
Well, he said, the coaching. He likes the coaching. So I don't think you'll see the big play. I think that Kittle has a big day, but he had a huge day against them last year, and they didn't win the game. So what's the big X factor in this game? To me, it's Jalen Hurts against Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Which one of those guys makes the big mistake? And I think Garoppolo might be more prone to make the mistake on the road than Hurts would be. So I like the Eagles in a close one there, Peter.
All right.
I like Philadelphia 24, and I'll go 24-20. Philadelphia over the 49ers.
We look on one of these walls here. Yeah, 3.5, right? So 4 is greater than 3.5. Okay, I got it.
So that's the picks there. Casey Joyner likes the Eagles. Sal Paolantonio, 27-24 Eagles. Adam Kaplan has the Eagles close. PT, 28-24. Yours truly, 24-20. Jeff Kerr, 27-23. 49ers is the picks there. So there you go. Almost everybody last week went with the Falcons. This week, everybody seems to be going with Philadelphia. I saw something this week that the Eagles are not favored in a game until week 8.
Well, I mean, that makes sense, I suppose, when you sit and think about how many question marks, new coach.
Well,
new
if they're
system,
2-0,
right,
and Dallas is 0-2 next week on Monday
night.
night.
Think Dallas is going to be 0-2?
They're going to Los Angeles this week and playing the Chargers.
That's true. I mean, they're no joke. That's true. They could be. Here's the thing, though.
That game's on Monday night next week.
I'm aware of that. I think Dallas is a good football team.
So do I, but they got a couple injuries now.
Yeah.
The left tackle being out for them is a big problem with the suspension. Lawrence being out for 8 weeks. Their secondary stinks.
That's true. I'll give you that too.
I actually think Los Angeles beats them this week. I think they'll be 0-2. I think Philadelphia will be 2-0, and they play on Monday night.
Yeah,
I'm going to Red Sox Yankees next Saturday.
Oh, you are?
In Boston.
Oh, good for you. This is news to me. Have a nice time. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'd never been to Fenway Park before.
My dad went, but it was for hockey.
Oh, how about that?
That's right.
Right. So, and it worked out because the Eagles play on Monday night.
Yeah, that's all good. That Monday night game, I mean, look, if the Cowboys are 0-2 and the Eagles have a chance to go make them 0-3, I mean, you don't need a lot of motivation for an Eagles-Cowboys game to get into it. But there were such weird things to me. I mean, the fact that the entire AFC West is 1-0, like the West is best. AFC West, 1-0. NFC West, all 1-0. I didn't predict or ever see that the Packers were going to come out and play. It's not that they lost. It's how the Packers played, and that those looks on Aaron Rodgers' face, like, I came back for this.
Yeah, that whole thing was weird.
That's kind of the look you used to give me all the time when we did the show together on a regular basis. I'm stuck with this guy.
Right? I couldn't find anything. So what do you guys got coming up Sunday in the locker room?
Well, we're going to have a good time. We got, obviously, we will have the guru, Brian Hartley, will be on, and our guy, Grayson. He comes on with us on Sunday and then gives his Grayson's grades with you on Monday. Plus, a little nugget of information here. Billy has let me know that he's going to the game. So he's like, hey, do you mind? Like, Exo's got the con. You know what I mean? So the locker room is going to be the locker room with PT.
The whole show?
No, and then in transit Billy Schwab. He'll do the first hour, but then, he's got to get up there at some point. So I'm making him call in, though. It's his show.
All right. Phillies and Mets this weekend. What do you think?
Oh, man, that stupid team. Like, first of all,
Did you watch last night?
I went the other night and suffered through the Tuesday night game where they lost 6-3. Here's what pissed me off. Odubel Herrera hits a leadoff home run. We were so close that we could see the players in the dugout and what they were doing. He hits a home run. Archie Bradley turns around. It's like, come on, guys, come on. Like, get excited. And I like Archie Bradley. But to me, I wanted to say to him, you don't get Philadelphia at all. We're not stupid enough to cheer because you say, like, oh, come on, guys, give some passion. We know what crap this is. It's crap. We know it's crap, and I'm sitting on my hands until you give me something good. And then last night, I was passively watching. They were down 7-0, and then they started to rally. And when they got to 7-7, I told you I had a little bit of the narcolepsy last night. I had to take a little snooze, right? So when I wake up, I couldn't believe what the final score is. The Phillies are like Godfather. Just when you think you're out, they suck you back.
I know. I'm so torn on wanting to get back in on this.
You gotta at least look.
I mean the 10 games they have with Baltimore and Pittsburgh coming up, and the Mets this weekend.
That's why you have to
and
look.
Atlanta's on the West Coast. I mean, it does set up pretty nicely for them. But God Almighty. So I'm watching this show on Netflix.
Okay, what's it called?
Love.
Oh, I watched it. Oh, it's is that the one that's really steamy?
It's got some moments.
Is it like a husband and
Judd
wife?
Apatow.
Oh, no. That's something else then. I watched something else. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was confusing the shows. Judd Apatow does it?
Oh,
that's really cool.
Yep.
That's very cool. All right. And what's the premise?
It's kind of a nerdy guy. He runs into like kind of like a, she's kind of like the bad girl. Like she likes the bad, like she's kind of like the rebel chick. And, she meets him in like a convenience store, and he pays for it, and then they end up like hanging out for the day, and then they end up dating, and kind of a
Oh, that's the guy from I Love You, Beth Cooper, Paul Rust.
Yeah,
all right, I'll have to check it out. And Jillian Jacobs from Community.
Oh, is that where she's from?
Yeah, that's what she was from. Yeah. She's Mickey, the wild child.
Yeah, and then Birdie, she's the Australian. She's a comedian.
I like the Australians. Okay, yeah. I'm all right with
Very
that.
Nice. Yeah, it's a good show.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Okay.
I'll
put that on my
put that on your list, Peter.
June list. Like I have to check off TV until school's out.
Ah, jeez.
30 seconds.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. We'll be here next month. We'll be here once a month. So this September one is in the books. October, I have the dates. I don't have them. Maybe you have the dates. October, November, December. We'll be here 3 more times. And don't forget
October
Monday.
15th.
October 15th, we'll be back right
10 seconds.
Here. Josh has game night coming up next. Tomorrow, the locker room with Billy
5
Schweim.
seconds.
Notre Dame football, Penn State. Have a great weekend.
Mike, hang on. Pete, take your headset off so we record this promo real quick.